Did you get this from other podcasts you saw, Christian podcasts, or did they get this from us? Because I've been seeing this background a lot, and I'm like, did they steal that from us, or did we steal that from other people?
It's an instrument. Listen.
Yeah. Daniel making music. No, I mean, I can't say. What I can say is I pride myself on originality. That's what I always can say. Because people ask me all the time, hey, did you take this from this person, or did you see this? You know, I've had illustrations that have been taken by other preachers that went viral, and I've always prided myself that if I ever borrow a preacher's illustration on stage, immediately before I do it, I give them the credit for it, 100%.
Oh yeah.
So the famous Francis Chan one with eternity and all that stuff like that. But so over the years, I've just defaulted to say I've created 95% of my own illustrations are just mine. So then if someone else is using it and in my same kind of configuration, then you know, okay, they were inspired by me, they took it, but they just have a bigger platform than me, and so it went viral. So I say that to say is I prided myself off of as originality as best as I can. I'm inspired by everything around me, but what I can say is when I built this set, is I did it in mind with not wanting to copy anyone else's set that I had seen. So could someone have had our configuration before? Maybe so. Yeah, probably. But did I purposely make this set the way it did to be like, I want to be different than the other ones? Yes. And are there other podcasts now kind of coming out that, because all this stuff is readily available. I mean, you can find this stuff on, Home Depot, Lowe's, all that stuff like that. So it's definitely not like it's custom made or anything like that, but it was unique. And not everyone was doing video. Not every Christian podcast was doing video. We really started planning this a year ago, Caleb, and then we launched in September. Yeah, So definitely no podcast really in the Christian space besides a few were like really prioritizing video and social, like to the way that we have now, putting that work in for, 9 months or something like that. So we know that to say some things have been inspired by here. So we know our music is going to be next. I got it. Put your mic next to you, Daniel.
Oh, we started already?
Oh, yeah, we've been started.
Man. I'm over here burping.
By the way, we got Daniel Johnson in the house with us. Worship leader extraordinaire,
Daniel Johnson in the
singer,
house tonight. That's
composer, writer.
That's so dumb.
Have you ever directed something? You ever directed your own music video?
Not a music video.
Okay.
Yeah, but
you've directed choir director. So, director. Have you ever composed music?
Yes.
Writer, director, composer, singer,
arranger.
Have you scored a
dancer? You ever dance?
I Kurt Franklin every now and again.
Jeez, you don't wear as tight as pants as he does. Do you?
Ooh. Nah. Never mind.
My man has given the whole world every ounce of his body.
I am not doing the
to see. I don't know that physically, but like to see. I've seen every crevice of his body allegedly in worship, right? Yeah. Like, man, them silk shirts are so tight. Them jeans. That's a wave. I didn't see it. If you told me 10 years ago,
think that gospel music has gone too far.
Nice.
I'm just saying, he's gonna keep pushing it. He keeps pushing it.
If you would have told me 10 years ago that there would be worship leaders that would wear one button
like
in their button up, or dress like Freddie, I wouldn't have believed it. I would have said, "There's no way."
And it's kind of weird for me. I feel like we put them in that category because they lead congregations in songs that are worship genre. Genre, is that a word?
Yeah. Genre.
I put an ED at the end.
It is now.
But so it's like, I like to consider there are a lot of vocalists out there, right? There are vocalists, and pastors are like, we need someone to lead the congregation in worship. They see a clip, they see, oh, you can sing, put them over worship. And then you have this vocalist who's leading worship, but I wouldn't categorize them as a worship leader.
Correct.
They don't train up anybody. They don't raise up anybody. They don't know how to get the congregation involved. They're doing riffs and runs over everything. It's like, and I'm not perfect with what I do.
Minister of music, as I put it.
Yeah, they're not ministers of music. They're like vocalists who happen to take the worship leader spot. And I know we created that. That's not in the Bible for us to have worship leaders, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. We created all that. And that's fine and dandy. But as far as what we know to be a worship leader, there are vocalists in those positions. And if those churches, the pastors allow that, it's like, hey, do what you do. So when I think of the one button, it's almost like I know who you are. You're a singer. You're a vocalist. But when it comes to worship leading, you're in front of a congregation, and a lot of times, not a lot of times, all the time, they're looking at you for cues. And we only think cues like when we modulate and go up, they're looking at your style. They're looking at your dress. They're looking at what's okay for them to wear into a sanctuary. So because they think if the pastor put them on stage, if the pastor has enough confidence to put this person on stage with shirt all open, then it must be okay for me. And a lot of times going to the grocery store, walking down the street, whatever, wear what you wear, but we have to be careful what we project in front of people.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah,
and
it's not like
it's
you're
not
coming
like
from the beach and you're walking back to your car and you just threw on your, your button up and your.
Right, and I get it. Like, that's a touchy subject. A lot of people are like, well, they shouldn't be looking like that, and all things are pure to those who are pure, and all that kind of stuff. I get it, but still, it's just you just don't.
Well,
I know.
Do you have a mindset behind your clothing? Because you're very conservative earth tones, like just very simple.
He comes from that Kojic that Church of God in Christ.
My
boy.
You know, I didn't join in. I was born in. Glory to God.
You're
See that?
Elder Daniel.
That means Church of God in Christ. No, but
you let your gift speak for itself rather than your clothing.
I would love for people to concentrate, because when you look at the platform, there's a lot to focus on. You got the band, you got the lights, you got the screens, you got the vocalist, you have our stage presence, you have our front-footedness, you have the lyrics, you have our vocal abilities, you have the melody of the song, you got all this. The last thing I want to do is have you focusing on my crotch. So I'm not going to wear tight pants. And if I do, I'm going to wear a long line shirt that covers that part. So when it comes to my style, the only thing that might be a little bit flashy is my shoes.
Yeah, and you don't always be tying your shoelaces.
Yeah, they just hang over sometimes.
Is that like a thing for you?
Yeah,
like
sometimes.
What are you, 70s baby, 80s baby? Like, what do you consider yourself?
I'm 80s baby.
80s baby, okay.
Yeah, so like the big, not floppy shoes, but like just putting them on and just walking around so they won't be tight. Yeah, I like that.
I think Daniel's going to lose a shoe, and you never have.
Because they're fitted. They're my size, you know?
Oh, nice.
They're my size. But yeah, I don't want people focusing on all of that kind of stuff. I like to look nice. But if it's about open shirt, the chain hanging down, and for those who do it, knock yourselves out. I don't know. I just don't want to do it. And maybe that has to do with me. I'm 44. Maybe that has to do with me being 44. I grew up in Church of God in Christ. We were mad conservative. Matter of fact, I hit up a friend, and I called her because we were watching after Mother's Day service. My family and I, we were just watching stuff and pulling up YouTube. It was like, oh, there was a guest at West Angeles Church of God in Christ. So we pulled up West Angeles Church of God in Christ, and I have a bunch of friends there, love West State, Bishop Blake. And the guy leading, this was a shock to me. You have to understand.
Yeah.
The guy leading had 2 hoops in his ear. Now, I have no problem with that. I wear earrings. But when I'm looking at
like
Kojic,
dolphin hoops?
No, like earrings, they were like probably that big.
Okay, like Sinbad type.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm thinking you.
No.
I'm thinking you meant like ghetto girl hoops. No. I'm like, they did not have a
that
guy
would have been weird. That really
Yeah.
would have been weird. But if you know the history of West A or Kojic, period, nobody gets on the platform with hoop. Bishop Charles Edward Blake's church, he had on hoops, and I was just like, now, my thing is I wear earrings here. I won't wear hoops because I just don't want people thinking, it's a long story, hoops. But it just takes a lot. People come with all this stuff on their minds, right? Then they get to the platform, and like I said, they got all this stuff.
You don't want to be
after about 5 minutes, then they're centered in on it's worship time. Yeah. I don't want all these extra things to get people. I want you to be centered as soon as possible. I want you to walk in and like, whoa, let's go. What's the first song? But when you got to navigate through all of this, and then after 5 minutes, oh yeah, we're worshiping. So the more distractions that happen, the longer it takes for people to really hone in on what your responsibility is to give them in that moment, which is leading them into or making them aware of the presence of God. I'm not trying to be all super deep or anything, but it's just
it's the truth.
That's how I look at it.
It's appropriate. I think it's appropriate to the atmosphere and the culture that has been established. I mean, I definitely think there's a line that can be crossed that isn't appropriate in any setting. So I think for women, leading worship or being on the platform, me and my wife talk about all the time is, she'll get ready because maybe she may be on for exhortation and something like that. And what may be appropriate for, us to go to dinner, I'll have her turn around, and I'm just I'm just, looking at her and going like, will you be a distraction? And she and I'm not putting that on her. That's something she wants to do because she grew up pretty conservative. So she's saying, hey, does this accentuate my figure too much? Is this appropriate? She'll lift up her hands, make sure like nothing starts like coming undone because she wants to be respectful to everyone that comes in and not necessarily push this line. And so to me, Ashley dresses very, very conservatively and very modestly. And I've kind of even pushed her to go, hey, dress up a little bit more. And she's like, well, this, my figure, that. And so I say that to say like, you have to be mindful in the atmosphere and the culture that you're in. So where something may be okay at Abundant, you go to West A, and so someone wearing earrings at Abundant or having tattoos at Abundant, well, at West A is going to be a little different, or at someone else. I mean, I've even spoken at places that were very conservative, and me knowing I got tattoos on my arms, my hands, all that stuff like that. I've told them, hey, is there appropriate dress? And then I've noticed they'll wear suits or whatever. So I'll say I'm going to wear a suit. And sometimes they'll actually say like, hey, no, we're actually trying to kind of shock our congregation. Like we're trying to get them to, because we want to get people from the city.
That's cool.
And so will you actually wear like a button up, like a sleeveless, but not sleeveless, but like I'm wearing right now.
Yeah.
Will you show your tattoos?
Yeah.
Because we actually are trying to push against that atmosphere, and we're having you because you're going to your look is going to help us challenge our leadership, challenge our congregation, challenge us to start accepting more people that maybe even look like you, Adam. Yeah. And so I think it's and then I've gone to other places where they say, like I preached in the hood, and they say, hey, we do we want you to cover all your tattoos, because some people from the hood are going to be evaluating my tattoos to see if I represent some type of clique or some type of area. And so obviously none of my tattoos do that, but their default in the hood is going to start first while I'm preaching. They're going to spend 10 minutes to see, do I have any tattoos that represent a gang past? Do I have any tattoos that represent right? And so then those places, I'm putting on a jacket. And I think there's no right or wrong. It's like, oh, Adam, should you just go remove all your tattoos then? It's like, no, not necessarily. I'm respectful to that atmosphere and that culture. And then once I buy those people in with my testimony or my ability to preach the word of God, then those people who maybe have that gang past or whatever will come and receive me, and know, okay, I don't have any gang history or anything. So it's kind of both sides. But I think everybody should be conscious about it. I don't think anyone should just be like, I am who I am.
Yeah.
That's not in the Bible.
Yeah.
You are who you are. Not when it comes to
become all things. So that I may win. What was that? Who was that?
Yeah, become all things so that you may win some. Yeah. And it's like that. And that all things, but and that has an application in a sense, right? Like, not everything. So this idea of like, well, I am who I am, I'm going to be who I am, like, that's rubbish. People are different cultures. People have different customs. People have different things that they're, we've gone to churches where my wife has had to wear a skirt below her knees. You're just being respectful to those communities. Could you say, they should polish this up a little bit or whatever? Yeah, okay, but... Who am I? I'm not trying to change 500 people's, conviction by showing up in their door and just, basically dropping the mic on them and, type of thing and then walking out. Right. And I don't think necessarily even a worship leader should do that in that sense of, I am who I am. That's why I'm going to wear, a silk shirt, button down, and then I may be a girl and I'm gonna dress this type of way that looks more promiscuous that you would see because I see that sometimes with the Christian pop people is like the women are like dressing much more like Rihanna or whoever else, and because they're trying to be like poppy, or do that type of thing, and then you think to yourself like, well, I think that's drawing the one thing if you're doing music entertainment, okay, but when you're like, come in, we're gonna worship God, this is atmosphere, there's got to be a line.
And every church has its own thing. And I remember traveling with Israel and New Breed, and we would have, flights and we'll have the assignments that go out ahead of time emailed to us, and we'll say, this is our attire. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it was outdoors, it was a festival, it's shorts and T-shirts, and
it's be hot.
We're dope, sneakers or whatever. And other times it was tie. And most of the times when it was a tie, we wore a jacket or a vest or whatever. Because we knew it. Now, we could, and I remember, I'm not going to name the group, but there were some members of another group that went out and they're wild and, you know, and I love them all. Like, they're my family still. Like, they are
Was
like
it B2K?
radical. No, they're Christian. They're gospel. And
I know who it is.
their leader, don't say nothing. Their leader pretty much was
this
like,
a long time ago, right?
this was long. Oh yeah, this was
Right.
like 15 years ago. I'm old. This was like 15 years ago. So they were like, well, you knew who you were getting when you called us. So this is our style. So if you don't want our style and everything that we bring, then you don't want us. And like you said, that's kind of rubbish. It's like, I'd rather acquiesce. I'd rather adapt to your culture at your church and just say, let me come in low. Let me come in this way. Let me wear this. Cool. And be radical with what I have on to the point to where people are like, yo, I receive that. I respect that. Because we're not dumb. We know that your clips and everything outside of this particular church, it's going to be you wearing whatever you wear, blah, blah, blah. But there's nothing wrong with coming in, like you said, and just adapting to the culture. I think it's a greater reach.
Right.
You could either say, no, I'm going to be who I am. I don't want your engagement. Or you could be like, nah, let me put this on. And hopefully I win some. I just think it's real simple for me.
And then it's different if, like, you're going to ask Daniel Johnson to come and do 4 hymns for you. Like, you probably asked the wrong guy to come and do 4 hymns for you, right?
But I might do it.
And I'm not talking about, like, gospel hymns. I'm talking about, like, you know, like, the
if it's Gaither, I
you know,
probably
like,
won't.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I mean,
exactly. So that's what I mean. It's
funk
like
it up a bit.
There's a side where, like, you are who you are, and that's the element. It's like the way I worship. Like, you're much more of a charismatic worship leader. So if someone coming in and combining you and hey, we only want you to do Gaither, the response at that moment on the front end is like, maybe I should point you to some people who could probably do this better than you, because I don't want to hear whether I did it well or didn't do it well. Like, because I'm gonna have to worship the way that I'm known to worship, right? So to me, that's someone being them, right? But not affixing to their, if you have an earrings, they say, hey, would you mind take those out for us? Hey, do you mind, putting, do we mind getting a haircut? You know,
I haven't done that. I ain't shaving no
but
beard.
whatever that is,
I don't
whatever,
care.
right? Not shaving a beard, but if it's just like, hey,
I was pointing out a
can you
certain
polish up a little
denomination
bit?
where they know not to invite me.
And there's other denominations where you're not allowed to have a shaved face, too. You know, you have to have a beard, right? So,
wow.
Really?
Yeah.
What are those?
Those are like some of the like it'd be like some sects within like the Messianic Jewish community, not shaving your sideburns. They also take that in the beard and stuff like that.
A lot of Orthodox.
So yeah, it's
I don't
like
know if that's a requirement for Orthodox, is it? Eastern
no,
Orthodox?
it's not a requirement, but
it's
it's heavily within the culture. I mean, you would look odd if you shaved your face in the Orthodox community as a man. If you were, it's like you're trying to be an adolescent boy if you do that in their head. Like in some of the Christian community, like
the
if you
Orthodox is the most alien.
I would
Christian
join it
denomination,
tomorrow
bro.
if I could wear their outfits. Dude.
It's crazy.
said-
I
so
love
join-
them though. Shout out to our Orthodox brothers and sisters. I don't even know. Like, what do they even do for worship? That's a good question. I'll never try.
what
It's
do
very
they
similar.
chant?
Yeah, it's very similar to Catholicism. They obviously the Eucharist is involved, so communion is a weekly thing, and then the incense. So it's ceremonial. It's very similar to Catholicism. So it's much more like a ceremony than it is. It's a weekly ceremony than it is like what we would think a church service is. You can find them online. But
Do they have like actual like ministers of like music where it's like a worship leader?
No,
that has
so
a
even in the
voice?
Catholic Church, for the longest time, they tried to do it now to kind of compete with evangelicals. They'll have a contemporary service where they'll have a guy with an acoustic guitar, type of thing. But
that's pushing the envelope.
right. Other than that, it's someone who comes up and then they, and we've seen it like at
We went
Grace,
to
but
the
they have
edge.
music. They do band, but turn to this page. This is the one we're singing, and 1, 2, 3, and then maybe an organ at that, right? They'll maybe have an organ. Ooh. So, which is the big ones, right?
Oh, the big pipe joints.
The big pipe organs, and the organ will keep your flow, and everybody will. God bless.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Now I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna Google it to see what kind of. I want to see what.
I
what
like
that is.
it. It's not for me weekly worship, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna see
the
what that
times I've
is.
partaken in it, I mean, the truths in the lyrics are the truths in the lyrics, and I don't need music to be any particular way to worship God. I can go to any church. I mean, I gone to churches where they're worshiping in Korean, and I'm gonna get mine in.
True.
Like I'm gonna worship.
True.
Like
I feel you.
I'm like.
I might be a little bit different. Yeah, if I would have to listen ahead of time, because if you, I probably would be looking around like, okay, what are they saying?
Well,
but
that's just because
me.
that's foreign to you.
Exactly.
Though.
That's
so
it. It doesn't mean it's not, necessary.
But if I made you go through it 10 times,
Yeah, then I'll be like, all right, this
Acquired taste.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any, I have this question. Is there any, I'm being funny with this one. Is there anyone who gets on our stage to exhort or do anything who you feel might?
Oh, gosh. What is Daniel about to do?
Who might, be in anything tight or, revealing? Anybody?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Male or female?
Either
male or female in mind.
Here's a better way to put it. There are individuals who are distracting. I won't say what they're wearing is inappropriate.
Got you.
But what they have ensembled on is a distraction. You know what I'm saying? And I've gone to many churches where it's like that. Or it's like, yeah, you're free to wear that, but why? Now I'm just thinking like, did you maybe get dressed in the dark or something like that?
Have you ever had a woman on your team who dressed too promiscuous? You had to like consistently, and you had to like rebuke her?
Before, yes. When I say before, I mean like over 2 years ago, yeah. And be like, that's not. So we put in our bylaws and everything. No sheer stuff, no sleeveless stuff. That's why they don't wear that stuff because it's.
Yeah.
And the women are like, oh my God, but the men need to grow up and they need to blah blah blah. This is my body. This is how I'm shaped and all that kind of stuff. We had one in particular, and she still goes here, but
for some it's just unfortunate if they are larger, on the top. It's just because many of those. Our sister-in-law Sanaa, I mean, she struggles with that. Is like what could be appropriate for my wife to wear. Immediately Sanaz puts it on. It's like, well, inappropriate because of how a woman's figure may lay differently. And so sometimes it is. It's just like it's an unfortunate reality. And to me, it's not even distraction of just men. It's like there are women here who used to be prostitutes and strippers who are or just in general were promiscuous. So you're like your distraction to them too, not just the men.
And in normal light, it looks different. And we have to remember we have stage lighting, and when that hits you from the back, it's silhouettes, everything. And then it hits you from the front, and then you can actually see through from the back to the front. So that's what I mean. Yeah. So we've had those situations before where the production coordinator or whatever be like, "Hey, Daniel, Miss whatever her name is, so and so, you might want to have a conversation with her because all her goodies are being shown." And I'm like, "What?" So they'll review. I mean, because we don't know during sound check, it's a whole different light, and then lights, camera, action got me saying, "I'm sorry, Miss Jackson, you can't see everything."
At least we'd go viral.
That will be our controversial moment. Yeah. So let it happen.
And I've been one of those people too that have had to, feedback back like, "Yo, Daniel," or whoever's been the worship leader over the years, like, this person may not. You may have to talk to them. Other times, sometimes people, be coming in sweats, and it's just, hey, like we like to honor it's just our culture, right? Like maybe if you're in Hawaii, you be in sweats and swim trunks and lead worship. Where we're at in Rancho Cucamonga, we don't necessarily have that culture in that sense. And I'm not saying like, nice joggers is one thing or something like that, but when you're like really you're wearing like you look loungy.
And there's nothing wrong when you're at home and you're chilling with God. You could sit, you could stand, you can bow, you can lay down on your back. You're praying to God, whatever that is. There's just a certain expectation when we come together. There's just a certain expectation we have, and some people get offended.
Like if you went to Disneyland and an employee was playing an instrument in sweats and a t-shirt, you'd be like, "Hey, what's going on?"
But that's when the hypocrite. Shows. That's when people like streaming the hypocritical and they don't even know it. They're like, "Oh, but I've had many conversations with that. I have people who just want to wear what they want to wear. And again, those who want to do what they do in their church, in their setting, that's fine. We just have rules here.
Yeah, we did recently. We recently had a thing, and it was a contracted person. Because sometimes what we want to do for Christmas or Easter, we just may not have that gifting in our church. So sometimes we will find it. Mostly, it's not a singer. We'll do that, but we'll do that with a musician. So if we want to particularly play a harp or something like they're not readily available, so you'll contract a harpist to come and play, right? And so the harpist isn't the exact example I'm using, but we had someone that was contracted. And they came in as if they were in like a 3-week bender in terms of their clothing. Like it was loungy. It was like they woke up and showed up to play. How's this a shock to you?
Yeah, this was recent.
I got the picture.
This was recent,
I don't want
right?
to give anything away, but
wait.
But it was like
Oh.
So everyone's wearing suits.
Wait.
Well, was it a Gen Z? Probably a Gen Z person.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
That's something I see a Gen Z
I'm
doing.
trying to
like,
think of when this was.
Hey,
Come on.
don't mess.
Because you said everyone was in suits, but we wouldn't. So that's what threw me off.
Well, everyone was dressed up, is what I'm saying. Not suits, but everybody.
Sweats, Uggs, and a sweatshirt.
Yeah, and
on a Sunday morning. But that's something we didn't think we'd have to.
But I text Daniel, I'm like, we'll pay for it. Send them to Target. Have them.
You would think you tell people you're doing a church service on a Sunday morning. I didn't think you had to tell that person. Like, we don't have it in our expectations when we hire these people. Oh, by the way, don't wear Uggs. You just never would think to say that. Yeah. It is in there now.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the same.
But usually, if they're a string player, a horn player, they only get hired for professional things.
Right.
So normally, like, no one hires strings or horns or anything unless it's business casual or above.
True.
No one does. Like,
that's what threw me. And when I saw that person actually doing sound check, I thought, oh, they're going to change. I didn't think that they would.
Because that happens a lot.
That's
like, your team will show up and they're loungy, but they're just doing rehearsal. Then you guys run in the back and you change because you guys got to, which I'm very thankful. I'm so thankful for all worship leaders across America and worship teams, because the amount of dedication they have to their church every week. That's what people don't realize. Like, besides the few on the team that are like being paid to put together the worship, and it's a lot of work. That alone is a lot of work. Rehearsals, knowing people. You have to hear someone sing and go, oh, you're a tenor, you're a soprano. Now let me get you better. Like, it's such a hard work. And then on top of that, these individuals who are volunteering are showing up at, depending on what your church is, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and then they're staying to the last service, because you can't teach 3 different groups that worship set for the week. I mean, it's a complete waste of time. So the people you're asking for is, hey, we need you all day.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, mostly almost no other ministries in any church in America has that expectation for any of their volunteers. You can go serve in children's one time, and you can go to a service one time. Yeah. But not any of the worship teams, and then they got to go to a rehearsal during the week. And so I will say a pause, and I will say a shout out to anyone that sings and leads worship at their church or plays band volunteer at their church. Like, you are seriously an unsung hero in the church, because churches would not be the same without what you guys do every single week, regardless of the type of music that's being sung. Every person is sacrificing a lot. Their kids are sitting around. Like, I remember that growing up. It was us who were the pastor's kids, and then it was usually the worship leader's kids that were just like running around, because anyone else, they were kind of being able to, parent was able to serve one service and dip. So shout out, kudos to your team, every other worship leader in America. 330,000 churches in America, all of which do singing on a Sunday. So at the very minimum, you do 2 or 3 worship leaders in America. There's over 1 million people leading worship every Sunday. Giving their time. And not many are in our circumstance where they can have those people employed, right? So 90% of those are all going to be giving of their own time, serving and volunteering, which is huge.
And I feel like music is the it's the pinnacle of connection with God, I think. This was something I've mentioned Howard Storm in the past. He had great influence on me, his near-death experience, and I mean, take it for a grain of salt, but I find his testimony pretty convincing. And he died as an atheist art teacher, painting, and he asked Jesus, "What's the, when I get back to earth?" He died and had a hell experience, and then Jesus rescued him, and he had this experience with Jesus, and he asked Jesus, when I get back to earth, I just want to do whatever most connects me to you, most glorifies you. And he was like, I'll build you a cathedral, I'll do this, I'll do that. What's the one thing I can do? And he said Jesus told him music and singing. If you were to choose something that God enjoys the most, because he said, and he saw this in heaven. Like I said, take this with a grain of salt. I know all of the real,
But you'll get a lot of subscribers if you keep doing episodes like that. All those deliverance guys are going to start popping up.
I know all you reform types are going to crucify me right now. But he said, but this really,
you were the people's champ up until you just said that. You see dead people.
But I'm like, but here's why, like, because I'm like, I am like the last person to want to.
You're a pure skeptic.
To want to
You're
say
cynical.
this. No. Well, that's not even the vein I'm going down.
Oh, I thought you were gonna be like, I'm not the type that.
No,
would
I am the least musical inclined person on earth. Seriously, I am stoic. Wow. If I feel anything during a worship, it means you did a really good job leading worship. Like,
all natural.
I am just like, I'm just in my head. I'm an intellectual. I'm a stoic. Wow. But when he said this, it was like, dang, I really got to work on this weakness of mine then. Wow. Because he said when he was in heaven, Jesus was giving him a tour of heaven. And he said, all of eternity is constant growth into godliness. You know, we think when we die, we're just going to be like the godliest we'll ever be, the perfect we'll ever be. We'll be sinless, but eternity is a progression of constantly becoming closer and closer to God, which is infinite. So it's going to take eternity to do that. And so it's constant growth, constant evolution, so to speak, of our souls. And he said that the highest pinnacle of that is what he calls the heavenly choir. And it's like the pinnacle of heaven. It's like the ultimate experience of God. And this is where those who reach the highest levels of holiness engage in constant worship, and they partake in this heavenly choir. And it was just a profound image that really expressed the importance of music and the importance of being in a choir, the importance of singing, and why I think people, worship leaders and singers and choir members and people in bands are willing to sacrifice the hours that they do, because I think there's a satisfaction and there's a joy that's not common to any other sort of experience in the church. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
People want to be used, and we know we had a choir here, and as soon as we got rid of the choir, we didn't really get we got rid of the choir.
We consolidated it in a sense because of the work that
also audition people over again.
Yeah. People's commitment level in the church in today's age, 2023, and even 2020 or 2019 has become less and less.
Yeah.
And that was a big aspect of it. Is to ask choir members to be here. Like, I can ask 6 singers to do that, but can I ask 50 choir members to come in at 6 a.m. and then to leave at 3 p.m. and then...
And in my experience, when they did come, half of them came 20% ready.
Yeah.
And we could see that. We could play back some of the, we could play back some of the videos, and, choir members up there watermelon. We say watermelon when they don't know the words. Lord, you are watermelon, watermelon. And I get frustrated. I turn around, I'm looking at people like, you didn't study it. We rehearsed it, told you to bring out your phones and record it. You get up there, you give us anything, and I don't like that kind of stuff. That stuff really makes me upset. So getting rid of the choir, yes. Having we have 28 vocalists. 26 to 28 vocalists who we split amongst 4 teams, and they come every Sunday, and then 5th Sunday we make up a team or whatever. I want to ask you this question, because you said when I moved, you've done a really good job. What moves you during worship? What? Because Pastor Adam, I know he cries maybe once every. What is it?
I teared up twice in one.
Not that our mission is to make people cry, but
I think part of our faith is there is an emotional expressive. That's why I've never liked when people say like, oh, that thing in church, like maybe more of the Reformed camp is put in the charismatic camp, like, oh, that's just emotionalism. It's like, yeah, when you're Reformed, you guys go to hockey games and football games still. Like, I see you moved by emotion all the time.
Exactly.
When I come and I hit your car and I rear end it, you come up and you show me a lot of emotion, right? Why could God not get the best of my emotion? I've never understood that. Even as a guy who, like Caleb and our whole family, is very stoic. We're very logical as a whole family. You can keep going up the mesomin to the grandfather, great grandfather. I mean, not a lot of expressive emotion. Very passionate, very Hispanic in that sense. So we all are passionate in everything that we do, but
Even
we
Pastor
do not
Nathan
express
like,
cheers and shouts and cries. And so yeah. I mean, I don't. I teared up twice this week, and that last time I cried was 3 years ago when my father-in-law passed. So that was my last tear, from this past Sunday when my dad announced that he'd be stepping aside at the end of this year. And then the whole church stood up and gave an applause, which caught me off guard.
That's great.
And so that brought a lot of emotion because I had convinced myself everybody hates me. That's just what your flesh does, right?
Yeah.
Saturday night was the most depressing night, one of the most depressing nights of my life, because I knew that announcement was happening, and it was like
next day.
if people aren't for it, I'm gonna go walk away.
Oh, they
Not that I
responded
need
very
people's
well, yeah.
approval. We know that,
I got
right?
you.
Like you know it, Daniel. We know it.
Yeah.
But the enemy starts playing games. So that oppression of like, this is stupid. Why am I doing this? Why are we doing this? Why are we? Dad could go another 20 years. What even? It was like.
That's the
I'm
beauty
playing all
of it.
that stuff
That's a
in
whole
my
nother
head, right?
Subject, but that's so.
yeah.
And I mentioned it to you before. The beautiful thing about this whole transition is Pastor Diego could go another 20 years, no problem,
easy.
doing what he does. But just the respect, and there's another word I need to use, but just that whole that he has for who he knows is next in line to be like, I can do this, but just because I can doesn't mean I should. So let me just go ahead and pass. I appreciate that. If Pastor Diego's watching, I love you. But anyway, go back.
We
No,
could clip
because
it for
we
him.
don't see
We'll
that.
clip
We
it
don't
for
see that. And I can say that even with worship leaders. I know a bunch even today who the next, without saying churches, but the next pastor is in line, but you still got, no disrespect, but you got somebody who's still operating off of old hymns and stuff. There's a way to create, singing these hymns, reimagine the hymns so that young people will gravitate toward them and adapt to them and sing them and minister. But you still want to do things your way in worship leading and keep this old sound. And then the church is dwindling. Members are not coming. They're falling aside. Like, what are you going to do? Like, you can still do it. That's wonderful. You can still hit your high notes. You can still direct. You can still sing. You can still conduct and do all that. But you got somebody in the wings who can come up alongside of you, who can take the lead. But what is that thing? Is it, well, I'm afraid this is all I can do. So if they fire me, I can't do anything else. If I let the congregation see that somebody else can sing better than me or
Then I'll be
preach better than
pushed
me,
out.
I'll be pushed out. I won't be useful anymore. It might be fear. It might be fear, but I've seen it and I see it now. I can see these people in and I get it. I feel like if I'm 55, I'm not gonna be jumping on this stage at 55. I'm not gonna be jumping on the stage at 60. That's just not gonna be it. So anyway, that's a whole other thing we went off into, but I really want to bring it back to, I do appreciate how this transition has happened because, again, I grew up in Church of God in Christ, and again, another conversation, but even my pastor,
to transition at 85, 90.
he passed away.
Yeah.
Passed away.
In his role.
In his role. So it's just like, man, there were other people who could come along.
Of old age, right?
Of old age.
Okay.
Yeah, and he
Yeah.
championed it. He can still do
Yeah.
it, but I don't know what that thing is. I don't know if, like I said, if it's just this is
think
all I have.
yeah.
So I want to go out with a bang. Who's other that other visionary you're stopping from do what this church could really be because you want to. I don't want to call it selfish. I don't know what to call it, but I don't know what to call it. It's just But all I know is I don't want to do that.
Well, there's a lot of risk, and there is a lot of risk involved. What a lot of people don't realize is if the church is like getting older and it starts to dwindle and young people don't want to come, the reality is the older you get, the more ornery you get, and the more critical you get. Ornery, like angry, grouchy. Why are they doing this? Right?
Ornery.
And so a lot of the older generation, what will happen is when a pastor acknowledges that and says, "Oh, I need to start bringing in someone young. We need to start maybe changing our worship like this, or maybe we'll have preaching like this." Unfortunately, the older generation is actually not very graceful.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah.
So when you start, that's what happened with us 7, 8 years. Because at first, my dad first announced a transition to his sons because he didn't really know who would be his successor. So he just told the congregation, "Hey, my 3 sons who are on staff, they're all going to get a leadership load.
Yeah.
They're all going to start coming in and making changes." This was about 8, 9 years ago.
Crazy.
So when he first made that announcement, we started having a lot of people leave because we started preaching more, and we were young. We were in our mid-20s, early 20s, right? So we're young. People are super critical. We've talked about another podcast. One day I did a stage design, happened to have a triangle in one of the stage design, which was not on purpose. People started saying Adam joined the Illuminati.
Oh, my.
That were older.
Wow.
They weren't younger people. So the critics start coming out. Here's what happens. When those critics come out and those ornery people do, there's two things they speak first with. First thing they do is speak with their money, so they stop giving.
Yeah.
People new to church don't give. Takes them a year and a half to 3 years to start giving. Anyone who joins a new church.
Wow.
Not if they church plant. If they church plant, people will give sooner because you're in the gritty, you're in grassroots. But if you're an established church, you have new people. Usually takes a year and a half to 3 years for them to even start giving you $1. So you got these people in your church that have been there 30, 40 years who are retired and they have the money.
Yeah.
So they're to them, they go, I don't think anything should change. I'm happy. I don't care that there are 15 people coming to church on a Sunday. I like my music. I like the preacher preaching. I'm cool, right? Grandkid, but then they'll come to you every week. Pray for my grandson. He's on the streets. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. But can your grandson come to church here? He can come to church here as long as he worships the way I worship. That's my grandson, right? So what happens is they start leaving and then they stop giving. Well, when they stop giving, the pastor starts getting scared. Not for himself, because now he starts to see the end of the road for the church happen.
Wow.
So that's what happened to us 8-9 years ago. When my dad first made that transition, it was literally you could have opened up the back door of a cow herd and started whipping everybody, and there were literally thousands of people who left our church. Not because we did anything, but because older people, my dad's age and older, were like, I don't know about this. 6 months ago, I met a lady who was in her 80s that said, I left the Abundant Living 7 years ago when your dad first started transitioning it to you and your brothers. I hated that you young guys were taking over in this church. She goes, I hated it. So she goes, I went to another mega church down the street who that pastor wasn't transitioning to anybody. And she goes, this past year, every time I'm in the nail salon and every time I'm in the hair salon, everybody's talking about this new young preacher,
Boom.
Adam Mesa,
Boom.
and your sermon and this and that. And she goes,
Boom.
that can't be the guy
Boom.
that was in his 20s that I left the church. And she goes, I came last week. I heard you preach. It blew me away. I'm leaving that church and I'm going to come back to Abundant Living.
Wow.
She was in her 80s.
Wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know how to feel because now you've been a member of that church for almost 6-7 years,
I know how to feel.
right?
That's what you get.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have left in the first place. Now you're no. I'm joking. I'm joking.
So then
That's
you think
wonderful.
to yourself like, well, now they, like now, and then one of the key caveats was she goes, and now over there, that pastor is now finally starting to transition.
It's gonna happen
and I don't like
wherever you
that
go.
leader that he's transitioning to.
It's gonna happen,
right?
Wherever you go.
And so you're flattered, but then you're uncomfortable because you're like, why did it take? You didn't even give me a fair shake. You didn't
Yeah.
even give me a fair crack. You didn't even let me grow. Like in my leadership in this space, and so you made a judgment call on me, and that's usually what the older children. So a lot of the pastors or even worship leaders that switch, they're actually more than anything appealing to their masses. There may not be a lot of them, but those masses are the ones who are undergirding the ministry financially.
Wow.
And that pastor knows, like when I start changing 10 members leaving, if you have a member, if you're like at those churches, right, that have older people and stuff like that, a lot of those people are subsidizing about 70% of your church's like income.
Crazy.
So if you lose 10 people who
Yeah.
collectively give a few $100,000 a year,
Wow.
like you're talking about 4 employees you have to let go if they leave.
Wow.
So then they end up going, you know what? I mean, if they're not on board for us to do this at the same time and they're going to leave, and then now we can't pay the electricity bill or the water. Now, I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but that is the reality. My dad was willing to take that hit on the chin.
Yeah,
He took those
that's
loss of
good.
members. He took that loss of finances. 2 of his best friends met with him and said, if you give it to your son, that we're going to leave because you're our pastor. And they left. This was 7 years ago. 2 of his best friends. So you have to be a guy like that is like such a visionary leader because if you're either dying of an illness or old age, then people will say, okay, we'll let you pass it on. Go die.
Yeah.
But outside of that, most of them are saying, you better get your butt in that pulpit on Sundays. You better give up your whole life for this thing and for us, right? You better go to your grave, not having a single weekend off.
Well,
right?
and I think it's dependent on church structure, because we're talking specifically of a type of Christianity that is senior pastor led, senior pastor ruled, which ours is. I mean, we have elders, and we have a board that holds us accountable, but our model is a senior pastor led church. So in that sense, that senior pastor has the freedom to be a visionary. That senior pastor has the freedom, especially when he starts it from his home, and he starts it from scratch. He has that freedom to be that visionary, and that takes a lot of courage to be able to be like, man, I'm sorry, bro. Like, I'm sorry you're gonna leave me, but this is where the next direction, the next phase of this ministry, and
I know of another church that's congregational. People may not know our language we're talking about right now. Congregational means that the whole congregation has the voting
equal
power.
stake.
So everyone in the church who's a member has equal decision stake. So hiring the pastor, firing the pastor, where the church spends the money, all that.
Votes on that.
It's everyone, the church votes on that. Then some have one
Elder
tier up,
board.
which then they have an elder representation, or the congregation votes for the elders, and then the elders make those decisions.
And the elders
right?
can literally fire the senior pastor if they wanted to.
Oh,
right.
I mean, it rarely happens, but if they wanted to, the elders could.
Believe it or not,
could
it's
fire
not
him.
as rare as you think, because I'm in all these
seen that.
church cohorts and stuff like that. It's definitely not as rare as you think, because what will happen is, I know of a circumstance where a church was, the pastor was really ill. It was elder congregational, so the elders were voted upon. The elders make the decision. There was like 25 of them. Well, the guy who was like older, like in his 40s, so the senior pastor was sick. They wanted to install like a temporary pastor while he goes and like gets treatment and stuff like that. Well, a lot of these decisions have to take a unanimous. So most of these churches voting in a senior pastor, like, it literally has to be a unanimous decision.
Wow.
Can't 10 guys not be for it and 90 be, no, it has to be unanimous. Well, the guy in his 40s dated one of the elders' daughters in his 20s, broke her heart. The dude's been married for 10 years and has kids. The elder refused to vote for him because he was mad at him for dating his daughter 20 years earlier and breaking her heart. So the guy couldn't be installed as the temporary pastor. So they made the pastor who was sick just continue to do the thing, preach and be. I mean, you just think to yourself, this is absurd, like and believe it or not, when you go into like church conferences and stuff like that, the biggest educational things that people talk about is church governance. Yeah. Because church governance can actually be a really
What's the Church of God in
game,
Christ?
This is so educational.
What's the Church of
I'm sitting back like, wow, this
We're supposed to be talking about
crazy.
worship, and
What's
then we
the
got
church-
into
No, no,
church
no,
What's
governance.
the Church of God in Christ? How they
I had a
rule?
grandfather who, my grandfather who passed away, and the same thing happened, similar, where they voted. Let's tell them on my family. But anyway, I had an uncle who was in line to get the church, but my grandfather said, my grandfather actually said, "You're who I want, but this son is who God wants. And I have to turn it over to this son." So they did that. The church voted, came in, the bishop came in, and all right, everybody for this pastor, stand to your feet. Nobody stood up. Everybody for this pastor who my grandfather chose, stand to your feet. The whole congregation stood up. And it became some other stuff. The deed of the church, where's the deed? My other uncle who didn't give was like, I don't know. And it's sad, but it still put my family on display. Still to this day, there's some kind of family rivalry. I had like 7 uncles who were pastors, so everybody knows what they're doing. What they're
Are they
talking
all
about.
Kojic?
Most of them. 2 have already passed away. Yeah, most of them Church of God in Christ.
Yeah.
So that's what happens in
So
the Kojic
it
church.
sounds like congregation decision.
It was that. It was
Yeah,
congregation
yeah.
rule.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
So, like, I could be so ignorant, but because I have a lot of friends who are coaching. From what because I hear a lot about voting and stuff like that, and even the top leaderships, like the bishops and like that's all voted for. The president of I don't know what if the language is president of Kojic or
the bishop.
the head bishop,
presiding bishop.
who was Bishop
Blake.
for the longest, right?
He was the longest one because he took over Bishop Patterson, who passed away.
Yeah.
So Bishop Blake finished his term or something like that, and then
So
they
that's all
Bishop
voted
Blake.
on. Yeah. So all that is voted on the leadership of.
And
of
the
Church of
transition
God in
happens the
Christ
same
and stuff.
year as the presidency. So that's how they do that. But yeah, that's how we do it in Church of God in Christ. Now I don't think it was a majority rules. It was like if 5 people stood up, but then 25 people stood up, that's who the pastor is. And it could get dicey. That's kind of just weird. That's a weird.
In
thing.
some of the denominations, like you may launch a church and then if you join that denomination, the denomination actually owns title deed, all that stuff like that.
They own the building.
And so like I've heard
Right.
horror stories of guys that were in denominations, they grew the church.
Yeah.
And someone was stepping down from like a presidency of the denomination or whatever it be, and then he actually gets to pick where he wants to be installed next. And so this guy will like have a church for 10 years, grow it, 1,500, 2,000 people, and then someone in a bishop or a clergyman can step down from their role in like the administrative sense of the denomination and go be a pastor again, and they can actually be like, oh, I want that church. And then that pastor, regardless if he started or whatever, if you're in that denomination, he gets spun out, and then that guy can have that campus. So that when I say like when you go to a lot of stuff, church governance is like the first thing you talk about. Are we going to be congregational, elder led, board led? Are we going to create elders inside, outside? You know, that is because there's a lot of room in the scriptures of like what are the elders' role and what are they doing, and you know, none of it in the modern sense. When you're reading the scriptures, did it entail anything about property buying and property rights, titles, deeds, all that stuff like that? So a lot of churches, most leaders, if you're planning a church, like when I talk to church planners, is the first thing you need to do is figure out your church governance.
I was going to say that's the first thing. It's like
'Cause
it's a board. Oh wow.
That can make or break your church, you know, in a good sense or a bad sense. So you definitely need accountability because you don't want to be Napoleon Bonaparte at all. So you need accountability. The board as a whole has to have a level of authority that if you are a rogue runner, they can cover the church and they can get you out of there if they need to. But they also can't have enough power where just because they found out tomorrow they don't like you, or you this happens a lot. Your wife offended their wife, and now they don't want you, or they want your youth pastor out because your youth pastor didn't let your daughter sing at the youth pageant. So now they're saying they're trying to do a board vote to fire your youth pastor.
You've
I
been
mean,
coaching before.
you would be shocked at what happens out there.
You sound like
that are just horror stories for pastors. That's why Gerald Brooks, my mentor, is like all he ever talks about is board leadership at a lot of his stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's what most pastors needs help with.
So how
Or
did
elder
we,
leadership, whatever their structure is, right?
How did
rabbit
we?
trail.
I'm gonna do it. Yeah, that was good though. I really, I mean, it's informative. Like that was some good stuff. And I want to get back to the question, what moves you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Holy
Rabbit trail.
smokes! Yeah. Sorry, everybody.
That was good. I think that needed to be mentioned, and a lot of people who are congregants, you know, sit out and they're like, "How do we decide these things? How do we look up on these things?" And I think that information was really, really good. So we can take a better perspective at how
Church functions.
Yeah, how we.
Yeah.
And,
It's not so black and white as you think it is.
Yeah.
You know, like
why didn't they do that and why didn't we? And it's like we'll go up to them and be like, "Well, ma'am, you're gonna have to talk to so and so about this." And they're like, "Well, I don't understand why you can't just tell me." Well, it's much deeper than that. I have no,
Right.
you know.
it ain't my, but yeah,
Yeah,
but
like
my pay grade.
yeah. No, seriously, I don't. But I do want to ask this question: when we did the shift, when we changed, because we were predominantly a gospel musical kind of
Oh,
church,
you're gonna
right?
open up a bag of worms with Caleb.
So because we talked about transitioning and everything, and I want to say whose decision was it? This collective, the meeting, or was it Pastor Diego?
My
Whose
dad.
decision was it to say, you know what? I know we're here. I know this is what we do. We're Jesus can't work it out. I know we're
I'm gonna get me. With the moment you start singing more gospel, I'm gonna get me a custom tambourine. I already thought this out. I'm getting a custom
Custom.
tambourine,
Who
What's a
customized-
good?
and I'm gonna make tambourines
customizes-
great again. I'm gonna make tambourines,
tambourines great
again, baby.
don't do because we got
yeah.
Jesus,
Then
I'm
you're
not
gonna.
gonna say that.
Yeah.
We got
Yeah.
already.
He won't do it. He
No,
won't
no.
do it.
You give me a tambourine, I will
wouldn't do
come
it.
Let's
alive.
find it. I think
wouldn't do
somebody
it.
needs to get
But
it.
it has to be the right music, though. I'm not doing it
What's
to know
the right
like,
music?
like
What's-
freaking, oh, Jesus, I love
Phil.
you. You're my boyfriend.
in Javi's audio booth, I think there's a tambourine. You get Caleb O'Rourke? I think I've seen it. No, what is like not
I want to smother you with my kisses and lick you and love you and just more. I love you.
because Caleb's not worship of choice isn't necessarily gospel in the sense of like William McDowell or anything like that. What are the people?
So
that
I know
you-
what
you
moves
like?
me, and I'm not saying this
yeah.
is like universal. I like vanilla ice cream, and I can never be persuaded to like chocolate. So I'm not putting this on anybody. You have your own taste. We all have our own taste.
And that's
But,
not
but I
that's,
do like.
that's not a race thing. You just did. No, I'm just kidding.
How is that racist?
Everything today is racist. These
know.
lights are white.
Right.
Why are
That's
they
fine.
white?
Dude, no,
just
I
kidding.
love vanilla ice cream. But I think it's a taste thing. But I know
is
what
definitely a
moves
taste
me.
thing.
I know what moves me. A lot of it is upbringing. A lot of it is, just.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I despise, like what I like feel repulsed by in worship more than anything. I don't like 7-11 songs where it's 7 words repeated 11 times.
Okay.
I don't like that.
That's a new one. 7-Eleven song. I gotta take that
You
one.
never heard that before?
No.
Oh yeah.
So, okay, go ahead. I'm
Because
trying to think of a
I like it to
7-Eleven
be
song.
Think of a song?
elevated. I like. Well, okay. So
I just want to give one to Gabe. He can look it up. We can play it, but or an artist. You give an artist.
okay.
I love you.
I like Don Moen.
forever.
I'm over here counting
Don
the
Moen.
phrases and
Don Moen.
words.
I love Don Moen.
DONM.
DONMOEN. Don Moen.
Okay. Gabe, give us his top joint.
Yeah, everybody
keep
knows
going.
Don Moen. They probably don't know the art or the writer, but they know his music. Don Moen has
Okay.
written
Yeah.
everything.
Give us something old.
Him and
I
Michael
love,
W. Smith.
Keith Green.
If he has any.
Keith Green. I love Keith Green. Now these are non-gospel guys. Well, Don Moen's kind of gospel, but
Oh.
Keith Green. I love Keith
Talking
Green.
about what do you like?
What?
Like worship, not
This is a church
artist.
podcast. This is a Christian podcast. We're talking about.
Okay, so the style of worship, it's
Don Moen's
got
not
to
a
have
worship leader.
it's got to have meaningful lyrics. Meaningful lyrics.
That's an ad, Gabe.
What's his
it's gotta
most popular
elevate
one?
me.
Yeah.
It's got to focus on God, like typically the ones that focus on God's greatness, God's majesty, rather than me. If it focuses on
Yes,
God,
you like,
then I get moved.
Christ-centric.
When you
Yeah.
brought that, the
Christ-centric.
choir, the hallelujah, even though it's one word, it's like hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. It's lifting me up to focus on
Yeah.
God, right? It's,
Well,
I'm not
even that-
focused on myself.
What's the Good Friday joint you guys did? The one you wrote right there?
I'll be right back.
Yeah, and
I
it
shall
speak-
return,
it
but it was
speaks,
his
it speaks on
perspective,
like
yeah.
Jesus. It speaks in like Jesus's lens.
Right. That
was fire.
he'll-
Absolutely.
Hey, I'm in the cross. Or I'm going to the grave right now,
Right.
but I'll be back in 3 days.
Yeah.
That was the. Can you sing a little snippet of that? How did it go? If you,
You know
remember
what's
it.
crazy?
was
I
fire.
wrote it for that day. I haven't sang it since. I'll be right back. You'll see me again. It's necessary that I do this for you, my friend. I shall return. This isn't the end. Just give me time, for in a few days, new life begins. I'll be right back.
That thing was
Yeah.
like. That was like.
Yeah.
Everybody
My
DM'd
past
us.
is over and you. Is that one?
Oh, that's
I'll make
Israel
good
who
things
Moving
new.
forward.
Oh, it sounds
Moving
the same.
forward.
Moving forward. Is that
I mean,
moving
that's the
forward?
jam.
Oh.
No,
Is a
that
different
was
song?
it. No,
That was a
that's
different
his
one. You just connected that song to my song,
Thank you,
but,
Phil.
but
Oh,
Nice
yeah.
medley.
Okay.
Nice
This
medley.
is it.
Now play it.
We're gonna make this great
Play
again,
it.
man.
You don't know what you're doing.
Oh my God! You play like your dad sings.
You gotta play me a
Bro,
song, bro.
That's
No, I don't got rhythm. I told you I'm not musical.
Well, how you gonna play the tambourine with no rhythm?
Hey, I don't need
it's
it, bro.
an instrument. Yes, you.
I'm trying. God appreciates the effort.
No.
Yeah, bro. God appreciats the effort.
Listen, I want you.
That's what it's all about. You don't gotta be
God
good.
appreciates
It's
the
the effort.
You used to
Okay.
play the guitar. What do you mean you don't have any
Are you
music?
serious?
We're kids. You had a guitar.
A ukulele. I did that for.
Well, you could play a ukulele too. Then you had a guitar.
You gotta
when
have
we were
rhythm
kids.
if you play the
Betrayed.
ukulele.
What?
You had
Caleb
rhythm
has
if you play
selective
the
memory.
ukulele.
Yeah, I could play the ukulele. I need a song though. Like, give me a song. I can't just play.
What's an
thin
old
air.
school gospel song? That's like fast pace. I'm trying to think. Oh, everyone's
I actually
screaming
don't
on it
have
from the
rhythm.
podcast.
I don't have rhythm. I'm in-
And praise His
Oh,
holy
yeah,
name.
yeah.
Let's do this.
Worship the Lord, dun, 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 and magnify His name. Worship.
He said you play like Pastor Diego sings.
I'm making a joyful noise.
He plays like Pastor Diego sings, yo.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Pastor already knows he's horrible, and he admits it, so
it's
it's not
terrible.
an insult.
Hey,
That's why I don't even try it.
That was
I
a
don't-
nice
Hey.
try, though. That
my Heavenly Father looks and smiles at that.
he does.
I will
He's
never
the
not sing.
onlyest
I have a
one.
conviction about that, though.
What did you say? What?
I have a conviction about that. I may not dance or I may not even always clap, but I never not sing. Everywhere
Gotcha.
that I go, I have a conviction that I have to at least sing at the very least.
No matter what it sounds like.
Yes.
Because you don't have to sing loud. You just
Right.
you're okay.
Well, because I even see people that will, in worship, like like to me when we gather in church, like it's I can do whatever you're doing. I can do that stuff Monday through Saturday. Like when I come to church, I want to join a collective body congregationally at worshiping God. So for me, I don't even, on rare occasions I do, but I don't even view this moment as like, oh, this is the me time. So like the song's going on.
Right.
And I'm going to treat the music as like background music while I like have this little moment with God. I can do that any other day. What I actually want to do is I actually want to sing with everybody. And so whether I fall on my face or not, I'm probably not going to do that stuff 9 out of 10. But what I will never not do, any church I go to, whether I know the songs or not, I will look at the screen and I'll be like, what are these lyrics? Because I have a part to play in this thing.
Absolutely.
And the moment I pull out and I don't sing, the moment I do create a show, and I look at that person at the front and I say, it's your job to entertain me, or it's your job to do the job for me. You may not even be entertaining me. I may go to a more conservative sense, right? And they just may be doing hymns. But if the moment when we used to go to Grace, they give you a little hymn book. The moment I close that book and now I'm just watching the harpist string the thing and I'm looking at the big choir sing the words, what did I just bring? I brought nothing. I'm so lazy.
Yeah.
Like I didn't bring any. Now, if I'm a skeptic, I'm an
Well, it's
atheist, and
you
I'm
gotta
far off,
participate,
and
yeah.
I'm still figuring this thing out.
Yeah.
Great. But once I've come in and I've said I'm a participant to this worship experience, then I need to sing. And there have been times where I go, I don't even know what this song means,
Yeah.
but I'm going to do my part.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sing the lyrics. And there's times I'm like, this song ain't clapping to. I don't even like this song. And not just here, I'll be other places. Like I'm not feeling this song, but I'm gonna sing.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna tell them
our
that
responsibility.
it's their job. Daniel, you figure this out on your own. Like, cause that's miserable.
It really is. It's I feel like you said, everybody has a responsibility. Everybody has a part to play. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving. That's everybody's responsibility. Enter into his courts with praise. Once you've come in, we've acknowledged his presence is here. It's your responsibility to lift up your voice. It's corporate worship. That's what it is. It's straight up corporate worship. And I agree. If you're going to stay there but we've gotten to a place, I think, with a lot of churches, not ours, but a lot of churches where it's become entertainment. But I love corporate worship. I love researching the songs. So when I'm listening to songs, I'm like, man, can they get this? And a lot of people be like, oh, well, let's do this. Let's go up here. Nah, that's too high. What do you mean that's too high? But that'll be powerful. It's
You're
too
gonna
high
stretch people
because
so
the
much that
average
they're gonna
guy
pull
is
out
not
of the
going to
moment.
sing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's put it in this key. Oh, but this key sounds better. Yeah, but if you put it in that key, no guy sings in that key. We have to have it right here. So at least they'll be like, oh, Lord, or whatever. That's my responsibility as a worship leader. That's why, going back to the other thing, when you have these vocalists who are like, it's my key, this is my key, so I'm just going to sing it. Y'all fall in. You're not caring anything about the congregation. I love, and I've gotten on production. I love production, love y'all dearly. But I've gotten on the production team when I'm like, we're up here singing. I want to know that everybody who's singing, not just by hearing them, but by seeing their faces, that they're actually getting the song. So I need to see them. So turn the lights up a bit. And when you just turn the lights up and people's hands are up and their mouths are open, I'm like, that's what I want to see. It allows me to know that this song was effective. This is for God. Sure, it's for God. It's. I feel like, how could I say this? It's to him for us. It's to him for us. We're gathered in his name to worship him. 2 or 3 are here, so he's in the midst. There's power in this. So I'm like, if I'm going to start selecting songs that have everything to do with me and to show off my skill and my abilities, what's the use of having it in front of a congregation? I could do that by myself at home.
Yeah.
But a lot of people take the position, I'm getting a check for it, entertain me. And woe unto the pastors who are just like, that's good enough. No, it's corporate worship. I love leading worship in front of people and have them sing back. That's our whole responsibility.
Yeah.
I do want to go back to that. I'm just gonna keep going. What made? Why did we? We were gospel.
Yeah.
We were gospel.
Oh, right.
We transitioned.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
What was the
Well,
thought
my dad's
process
talked about
behind
that. It was
that?
his choice. I mean, it was because Adam can
Because it was a crazy shift. I mean, when you
he's
go
talked
from
about that, right? A lot.
gospel and
yeah,
CCM are two different
Yeah.
genres.
Yeah.
And you can merge the two, like William McDowell, Israel Houghton, Newbury. They're crazy at merging those two. But when you go straight from gospel straight to CCM, really, really quick, like who said let's do that?
It was definitely ultimately came it first. Well, here was the thing. Here's what I had to explain to a lot of people. Was my dad knew what he liked, which was gospel,
Okay.
but he recognized that not it wasn't fully diversifying the church, and we've heard many times on stage his mantra of like, you know, if you invite someone to your house for a meal and you know that meal is so different than what they're used to, you should, as a good host, you should have a couple things
Absolutely.
that they're familiar with. You know, like if you go to a Mexican household and they go, man, all we have is menudo, tripe, intestines, pig feet, blah blah blah, you're gonna be like, but they go, or we have grilled chicken, right? You're gonna be like, okay, well, all cultures do some sort of grilled chicken. I can do this. And so he always said, like, our attempt at making a bit of a deviation from gospel is our attempt to say there are people in our church who are going to come visit, who are going to be of other cultures, and if every Sunday we're putting out the same thing over and over again, that person goes, I don't know what this is. This is so culturally different from me. This is so culturally unaware to me. So he said we have to start injecting. He didn't know though. He didn't know what that looks like.
Okay.
So then he pulled on me and he was just like, you go figure it out. You go start throwing suggestions. You go start. So I'm going to Hillsong conference and I'm listening to Hillsong music, and I'm going over to this conference over here where they're doing music, and I'm listening to Elevation Worship early on, like their early stuff, right? And I'm going, okay, this sounds pretty good. A lot of places in America are playing it. You know, we're not at our church at those times.
Yeah.
So let's start doing. I remember one of our first CCM songs we ever did was Hillsong's Cornerstone in Christ Alone. And Gabe can put that
cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. Yeah, big ballad.
So that was one of the first that I was like, man, I think our church could adapt to this. It's not super white. It's not, you know, it has.
Was it all gospel though? It was all gospel.
We were
worship?
all gossip every week, all gospel every week, you know, or what's like a variation of God? Because there was this era in the 2000s that, like, you may not put it in gospel, but it's like Pentecostal revival type music. It was very, you know, like, I don't even know what the Adam Rainey stuff or
Okay, yeah, that was like a cross.
Like, so we were doing some of that, like the cross stuff, like some of the BJ Putnam stuff. We were doing Israel stuff.
Yeah.
So that was that was the most we pushed, right?
Yeah.
So then I remember on an Easter, I think because this came out in 2011. So I want to say like maybe 2013. You could turn it up a little more, Gabe.
Yeah, that's totally different. That was
So it might have been Easter where we did an arena, 2013. This would have been one of our first moves. But again, back then, whole worship team's black. So they're all singing, you know, they're all singing this and everything
Kelly.
else. Right. Kelly was always our person, right? So the way I would explain it to people is like, okay, and the leadership team agreed with the elders, and because our elders were all black and everything like that. So you're talking Dr. Sunday and John Chappelle and everything like that, and our deacons, and most of them were black. My father-in-law, you know, elder who was black, and then my mother-in-law was white. She was deacon. So all in all, I get brought in to do a job that basically makes you the most hated person in America, right? It's like introduce new music. Well, it's not even necessarily the music. I listen to hymns in my personal worship time. Yeah. So it wasn't even the music I was listening to. So a lot of people thought, oh, Adam's coming in and he likes Hillsong and he likes Phil
song
Wickham,
was
and he
popular.
likes,
They were popular.
I'm thinking of all the other, Matt Redman or
yeah.
whatever, right? He likes them. That's what he listens to, and he's coming in charge, and he's doing. And I'm like, no, I actually don't. I don't prefer these guys. I actually prefer 1750s. Great is thy faithfulness is my jam. I'll listen to that joint any
So were you
day,
thinking
right?
of what was popular? Like
I'm
what
thinking,
I think the congregation would
I'm
like.
thinking of if someone came into our doors that other culture, what would be something they were familiar with or
style of
heard
music,
that they would be aware of. And it's going to be Hillsong. It's
Yep.
going to be early elevation. It's going to all those things like that, right? So I get told to do the job, and there was a lot of confliction around the worship leaders back then. So we're having arguments, and they're not understanding my dad's desire. They're not getting it. But that's part of the heat you take as a visionary. There's not a lot of visionaries, in this world. And so with my dad making a visionary, turn to say do this, we look at our church now 8 years later, and we are so more diverse than we ever been in our history. I mean, you look at our church now, and it looks like a bag of Skittles when you look out at the church.
Yeah.
8 years ago, 9 years ago, it didn't look like that. It looked like a bag full of majority brown M&Ms with a few yellow and reds thrown in there,
Which were nuts.
which we have a few nuts, a few peanut M&Ms, right? And so I've been around long enough. I remember the days, us being majority black, where you could walk out the courtyard and you can see the Mexicans hanging out with the Mexicans and the whites hanging out with the whites. We looked like a high school after church, right? Because we were changing some of the carpets and some of the drapes, but it hadn't gotten into our DNA yet. And so as a visionary, you're taking those hits, you're taking those licks of people leaving our church, people leaving our community, people who prefer, like even myself, like if I can't get my hymns, then give me something to shake to, then give me the gospel.
Right.
Well, I'm saying we can't really on a regular basis do all of those because it's scaring people who come. You got to think, like, if you're in any other culture, like specifically if you're like someone who's white and you come in, and I've heard it before, people like hear us shouting and clapping and shout, and that Hispanic culture will do that. Black culture will do that, but white is definitely more reserved and more. I mean, you could get some white Pentecostal stuff, but all in all, pretty reserved. They come in and they'll go. I've talked to people after service in the courtyard. I loved everything. I just don't know why everything had to be so showy. And I go, it wasn't showy. That's not what it is. It's a culture that you're unaccustomed to. I don't go to a Mexican birthday party and everybody's swinging piñatas, passing out agua fresca and Coronas, and think to myself, like, why are they just celebrate so hard? You just go, it's in my custom, I recently saw TikTok go viral. A white guy went to his first black household game night. So everybody's yelling at each other. Everybody's like, no, like this. And he's just sitting there with a big smile because he never seen anything like it, right? Everybody's showing, that's not the rules. That's not right. And so, you go more to a white household first. They're going to pull out the Monopoly box, pull out the rule book, read it first to everyone. You go to a black household, let's start playing, and let's just see who pisses off who first, right?
The Hispanic loteria.
Yeah, okay.
Loteria is good.
I mean, I know more black culture than I know Hispanic culture, but I appreciate you throwing in that side.
Come on, don't forget loteria.
I mean, hey, I got the last name, but I definitely grew up more with a black culture than a Hispanic culture. So all that to say, like back in that day, it's just the board, like the elders who were all black decided we want to look
funny,
more like our
man.
mall. We want to be
That's
more
funny.
diverse. So who do you give it to? You give it to the young guy. Who is, and I'm pretty rebellious in spirit in general. So there's nothing I won't do for the most part, right? So I'm just like my dad in that sense. Like I'm like let's break chains, let's break walls, break fences. Why not? Let's give it a try.
bold,
We have
man.
that same personality. So that happened, and I took the hit for it for years, which I'm thankful. I'm thankful it's gotten to our church where it's at now. And we feel that now. We know how to be us while also respecting the other culture. And that's hard. Any church that says we're going to be multicultural. I mean, I have friends that call me that are like Asian, that are like, man, I'm only having Asians come to my church and it's pissing me off. Like, I want other cultures in my church.
I've seen pastors who want the other cultures at their church, and they try to change it with the music, which the music, of course, has a major part. But I know churches in hoods that say, I want to be multicultural. And I'm like, straight up, you're in the middle of Watts. Now, as much as like there's nothing wrong with God calling you to a section and saying minister to that community if that's the community that you're in. But I also know pastors who are like, well, Lakewood Church was in the hood, really in the hood. Was it John Osteen?
Yeah.
Bunch of whites, bunch of Hispanics, bunch of blacks coming to the hood. But right after church was over, they bounced.
Boom.
Then they got the heat for moving over, where they are currently.
Arena.
And then a lot of blacks wouldn't come, a lot of Hispanics, most of the white would come. I say, do what you have to do to walk out the vision that God has given you. I made fun of Pastor Diego when I came aboard, and I was alongside of the worship leader at the time, who was straight CCM. Straight CCM. Pastor Diego was like, we want a bit more, just a bit more. We were once this. We don't want to go all the way back to that.
We overcorrected.
It was that.
Yeah.
So bringing
We
me
made
in
a
for
mistake.
balance.
We overcorrected.
And I looked at Pastor Diego. I was like,
Yeah.
and I was joking. So please don't find offense to this. It was a joke, but he laughed. We both laughed.
He don't care.
I said, so I'm the token, basically.
Oh,
But I just listen. I'm crazy. You guys, even on the platform, I'm kind of crazy. I'm just gonna say things, and he started laughing. He was like, "No."
ain't
And
like
I was like, "It's cool. I totally get it," because I already knew coming in, where we were and what we wanted to do. We had the choir doing the gospel moment, but I do think that right after the pandemic was when we were like, "This is for the music department. This is pretty much about to redefine our culture as far as the music department is concerned." Because we had the choir.
Yeah.
The pandemic happened. We got rid of the choir, not bringing it back. So the gospel feature was no longer. So it says, when you have a gospel feature, it says everything else is going to be this, but we'll give you this. Because everything else is this,
Yeah.
but we'll give you this.
So
Once we
we'll
took
give you
the
a token.
feature
Yeah.
away and said, well, let's do hymns, gospel, CCM, funk, soul, blah, blah, and where we're going next. Which
Hello.
But that's a whole other
Wedding
podcast.
feast music.
Wedding feast music. That's really a lot. That's
yeah. Let's
really.
not even say that. Somebody may steal that. Yeah. Let's have we trademark that.
It's allowing us to redefine or define even more what we've already begun to define, during the pandemic or whatever. So I do think still, I agree with you. I think we're at a healthy place, and our musical creativity is just going to get stronger, and you'll find that out later once we start talking about that. But
Yeah.
backtrack. That was like a question, and then we're going backtrack again. What moves you?
But I said it.
You did? What was it?
Christ-centric songs.
I like.
songs that aren't repetitive.
I like.
You did. You
But
did. My fault.
I think probably it boils down to I love the hybrids of
Yeah.
of hymn lyrics with like a gospel
undertone.
praise.
Do you like CCM?
No. I think there's one song I like, one CCM song. It's probably
What is it?
that Matt Redman, 10,000 Reasons.
Oh,
maybe.
Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul.
Which still sounds like a hymn.
That's what I was about to say because
Yeah.
it sounds like so.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I got you. Let me make a note of that.
I'm definitely more diverse in I think what definitely moves me and can move me. I think so. I think I have a little more diversity in what moves me, but it is still often a rarity but again, like it's not always for me, and I recognize that, and I know
Right.
Caleb's recognized that. We're mature enough to, because that's the problem with a diverse church. Like you have to be willing. You have to be willing to understand that on a Sunday, not everything on your plate is going to be something that you picked off the buffet. Some of it is going to be chef selected, so you have to respect that the chef, being the pastor, the worship leader, has a range of who they know is in their church, who they know we're trying to reach. And they're going to say, okay, yeah, you can select an appetizer, but the entree this week, we're choosing that entree. We're going to be doing that, and we'll let you choose the appetizer, and that's going to come in the sense of musically. So I know that. I'm not looking every week necessarily to be moved. What I am looking for is not to be doing the bad, the annoying stuff that we all just know is in worship nowadays, or the stuff that we do too much, which is we're gonna make you cry.
I get it.
And that's the stuff that's like, I'll literally go to a conference. Every conference, I'm always like, why are we doing why are we doing 30 minutes of worship, like in just sad music and crying? It just
easy.
and why.
easy.
And some people want it, and some people are maybe new to their faith journey, and so they're still in this like reconciliation of their past, and so they still carry a lot of that burden. But I get it. There's a million reasons why it's still why people do it and why we're doing it. But more than that, it's like what you're saying. It's very easy, and to me, it's what sounds right. So when you say let's worship God, your immediate sense goes, it has to be slow.
Yeah.
It has to be very, you know. And so for you to say, you could worship God by dancing and smiling
Absolutely.
and praising,
Absolutely.
people go, no, that
Absolutely.
doesn't sound right. That doesn't. Well, let's go look how David
Yeah.
worshiped God when he
Absolutely.
celebrated God. Okay, let's go look at how we're going to worship in heaven. Okay,
Absolutely.
well, now let's start making some comparisons. How come Jesus keeps referencing his return as a wedding, the bride, the groom coming back to his bride? Have you ever been to a wedding?
No.
Like, do weddings look like worship, what you're doing in church on Sunday? No, it doesn't. Not what we're doing at conferences.
regret.
So I think there should be doesn't mean you shouldn't do it,
Right.
because there should be a sense of reconciliation with God and even moments of appreciation that are more somber 100%, right? Like, I'm with that, but that's just like, that's gone overboard.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that I'm immediately like, in any setting, conference.
In the
or church,
early
I'm like,
days,
there
at
we
least I
go,
remember
you
at
know?
Utica when we were kind of more of a gospel emphasis, it was a very strict, I feel like. It was like a very strict two songs praise, 2 songs worship.
Oh, really?
That's it. But has it changed as far as like when you say there's more worship now in general?
Yes.
Is it now like 1 song praise and 3
Yeah.
songs worship? Is that how it is?
lot
Because
of-
it used to be very
praise, 2 worship.
balanced.
Yeah.
And that's when I enjoyed it the most, was because I remember those days when it was just like you immediately opened up with we're partying for 10, 15 minutes. We're partying, it's a party. And then Lord, you know,
Yeah, right,
and then you-
right.
and you enter the
'Cause that's
message. You
just-
prepare for the message.
That's what it's been lately. I've switched it. We'll start with a hymn or the slow song, the ballad. Well, you are Alpha. We'll start with that and then go into something up tempo. Of course, the audience is like, woo, and they're waiting for that slow song, and then somebody comes up to exhort, and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
worship. It's
Because they've been
finished.
trained a certain way.
Yeah, and there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. It just kind of is what it is, but we're trying to flip that and make it something different.
It should be at least 50-50, right? I mean, that's
the
kind
very
of-
minimum.
It should be at least 50.
I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't say it. I would say like, because it does. Like, who says it has to be? If worship was 20 minutes, who says it has to be 2 songs up, 2 songs? When I look at the worship,
Well,
when
you-
I'm
you-
planning-
What I'm saying is, in
Daniel
order
does 2
to
songs
be
in
in
general
order
now.
to fulfill the
Yeah,
vision,
I'll
in
do
order
what
to
I
fulfill the vision of a wedding feast, like I feel like it does have to be like 50% praise at least. Like 50% praise, 50% worship, in order to be true to that vision of this is a wedding feast, right? That's what I
Well,
mean.
Well,
Yeah.
are we including the after party with the wedding? Are we including the reception with the wedding? I'm being natural. Like, if are we including the wedding? Because if you go into a wedding, most of the after party, most of the reception is going to be up tempo. The only thing that's going to be ballad is the actual Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven. Well, at least a black wedding. Hollywood.
Yeah, I'm about to be like, what weddings you going
And they
to?
gonna do that.
I
Yeah.
haven't done that at one wedding.
And then it's going to be another slow song by Brian McKnight.
I mean, there's a few, there's a few ceremonial. Yeah.
But then the after party, which is a part of the wedding, is going to be like celebratory. So I'm looking at it like when I select the songs, it used to be start with this up tempo, and then this song, and then this is beautiful. Yeah, this will go right into the message or whatever. Now I'm like, I like this song. The congregation can sing this song. It's in the right key. Blah blah blah, and this goes into that song a little bit better. So it might be some up tempo song. A couple of Sundays ago, I believe we did all up tempo songs. It was just all up tempo because we just wanted to celebrate.
Yeah.
So I'm sure some people miss the ballad. I went to a church once and they said,
No, I think what Caleb's saying is right now in every church there's an overemphasis at the ballad. So like,
'Cause that's what we've been talking
if you're
about,
gonna
right?
air,
I mean,
if you're
we've been-
another church,
that's the
right?
point.
If you're gonna air, at least air it doing this thing at doing 50-50 because
I got
most
you.
churches
I'm
in
thinking-
America are doing one praise song and then they're doing 15 minutes of a Maverick. Well, Maverick City songs are 13 minutes, so they're
The
doing
ballads,
doing
yeah.
one praise song and then they're doing a song and a half of
Yeah.
a Maverick song, right? So
Right.
it's all long ballad.
I get that. You're saying at least, okay, you saying, I got you. I got
There
you.
should be a
In terms
balance.
of
I
the-
agree.
in terms of
And
the
I don't
pra-
think the order
emphasis of the praise
necessarily
side.
matters as long as it's not too heavily weighted on the slow.
But I think,
somber.
yeah, and I think some weeks you could do all slow, some weeks you can do all fast. But when you look at it in 52 weeks out of the year, you should go like, okay, at the very minimum, there's a fair balance of both.
We definitely at this moment have 75% ballads, 25% up tempo. Definitely on our.
But we know because there's not enough stuff out there.
I can't find anything.
So here's one of the days.
I can't find.
Here's
anything.
one of the days I got so offended. I rarely get offended, not here or anything like that. So I'm at a church preaching, predominantly white church, and then afterwards, the worship leader comes to me after the whole set, this whole day, right? And he goes, "What do you think of the worship set?" I said, "I mean, I'm not stupid. I go to churches all the time. So your reaction was great." I'm not saying what I mean. I didn't know any of the songs they sung because they were white songs. We don't really sing. We sing CCM songs, but we don't sing like white CCM songs.
Right.
Or we'll put a little hot, hot sauce on it.
And
Lord,
if we do,
I lift
you
your
can't.
name on high.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
we gonna do something to
or
it.
the newer stuff. I mean, I couldn't even name it. Right. The newer stuff. So all service they had 4 songs. I literally could not. I didn't know. I'd never heard of a single one of them.
Wow.
But they were modern. The whole church knew them. They were modern songs. I didn't know them. So
just not the hits.
Yeah. So he's like, I'm sure it's a hit in their world, so he's like, what'd you think? I go, it was great. He goes, do you have any suggestion that, of where we can improve on? Which it's a whole other leadership thing as a whole. Like, don't teach your team to ask people for their honest opinions. Wow. What you need to do is teach your team how to receive honest opinions, because you may have a culture that says we desire feedback, but how you receive feedback is another thing. So I could tell in that church that asking for feedback was a cultural custom. So he asked me, is there anything you think we can improve on? So right away I knew, okay, this is something his senior pastor creates as a culture in the staff, but how he's about to respond to my feedback is going to dictate whether they've been taught how do you respond to feedback when you ask for it.
Yeah.
That's 2 totally different things.
Yeah.
So I told him, I loved everything. It was great. The congregation was singing and all that stuff like that. And I go, but I know from your pastor, I know from your guys' heart it is your desire to be more diverse, or you do have a few black people in your church, and they actually all come out when I preach because they know that I'm more of a charismatic preacher. Yeah. So you know that your church, all the black people and all the Latinos, you particularly promote to your church that Pastor Adam is coming because they know that I'm a person of color that preaches. Wow. And so it even draws people in your church to be there that Sunday, right? Wow. So we can agree. You guys have a desire to be more diverse, to reach people diverse. That's what I'm doing here. Yes. I said, I didn't know where I come from, which is more of the minority side of church. The songs you sung today, I didn't know them at all. Never heard of them. I didn't know the lyrics, which is fine. But I said at some point I would hope, if I'd join this church, would there be something of a cultural custom or more of a minority sound that would at least have a few songs that would make me feel comfortable? Mm-hmm. And I said, so maybe adding some black music in there, maybe adding some other stuff like that. And his response was, I would, but all the black music is dated and it's terrible.
Wow. What's his
and
name?
He goes,
Who is he?
Right. That was his response. His response was literally, it's dated and it's terrible. And so maybe if the black church starts making stuff that actually sounds like it was made in this era, I'll start playing it. Wow. It's hard to get under my skin. It's hard to offend me.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I was like, you really, are you really that naive? I'm like, first of all, I looked at him, I said, first of all, the white music stuff today sucks.
It does. It's bland. That's what
it could use a little seasoning,
Absolutely.
right? And again, I'm putting out there, I'm ignorant towards it, so someone, feel free, DM me, share me what you like. I may not know, right?
Listening to Air One in a cell, that may be purgatory. That may be what purgatory
100%. what is played
Hey.
on
Air
yeah.
One
Yeah.
in a solitary confinement, like that played in loop.
Yeah.
That
is in
may
between.
be
That is
how I
purgatory.
would imagine
Like,
purgatory.
Now, I'm
lies.
not talking about the OGs. I'm not talking about the Matt Redmans. I'm not talking about Phil Wickham.
That was a
Right,
little
right,
harsh.
right,
You know,
right.
they shoot hits, but we're talking about in the grand scheme. Like, if you're gonna put black music as a whole under the bus, then we're gonna look at white music as a whole. We're not going to talk about the few people who are
Right.
like really killing it.
Right.
Let's just look at everything that's being released. So I look at them and I go, like, my view is your view concerning white music.
Right.
Like, so I know stuff that's in our world that it's dope. It's just unfamiliar to you. And I told him, and to be honest, it would probably make you feel uncomfortable.
Right.
Because the way that the music has to be led takes a little bit more energy than you standing behind your piano leading worship. So I just basically had to take him through the school of ebonics of like, dude, we're talking about two totally different cultures. Like, you can't just throw a call. And me making the joke about white people, like, I'm half joking of like, if you're gonna say that about black people, I'm gonna say this about white people. But I'm making a joke to say like, we stretch I told him we stretch ourselves every week to play white CCM. The least you guys could do is stretch yourself every week, not or once 9 months. You know, like to play something that would make. And they're people in your church. They're in your church because they come hear me preach when I come and preach. Yeah. So it's not like you're a 100% white church. You do have people of other colors in your church that are truant, like what we used to do. You got white M&Ms with a few brown and yellow and reds trickled in, right?
Yeah.
That was one of the first times in a long time, and this happened years ago. Yeah. This is one of the first times in a long time that genuinely, like someone in church, like another church leader, because people in the church try to hurt you all the time, but like another church leader where it's like, that got under my skin. That was like, but again, it put me on a mission.
Yeah.
That I was like, if you don't think so, then I'm going to make music that you'll be begging, to get a hold of. And I think we've done that.
Yeah, we have.
I think what we're dropping in July,
Yeah,
I think we've done that.
We're intentional.
Sky's the
One of the
limit.
things I appreciate about Abundant Living, we are very intentional about being and staying multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-generational, and we that's one of the things when I say like we have vocalists and we have creatives. People throw the word creative around like, oh, I'm a creative.
Yeah.
I'm a creative.
It's art.
I'm a creative.
You're a
and you'd be like,
sculptor.
nah, bruh. When you can take a song, when you can take a CCM song and
Yeah.
Splendor of the King, like Tomlin knows that he's dope though, but he's like, his canvas is like, it's almost like he writes stuff and he's like, I'm going to do what I do to it. Boom, take it and add whatever you need to add to it. Robe, all the rejoice, how great is our God. Sing with me. But when you go, how great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. When you know how to take
like
a
some Chris
gospel
Tomlin.
song,
Chris Tomlin's cool.
Chris Tomlin's dope, and flow from CCM to gospel. That's what whoever the guy you were talking about. That's what he
I'm
was.
like, you should be able to do that, bro.
But that's what I'm talking about. He's a vocalist.
Deconstruct the song.
You can't. There are vocalists, there are worship leaders, there are architects. You add all of that together, and you'll get this wonderful flow of music that you can weave together on a Sunday or a Wednesday night. So I'm not trying to talk about anybody, but he is.
You don't know who he is.
I don't know. He's according
I
to
think
what
he's doing fine.
According to
I
what
don't-
he said,
I
he's a
don't-
vocalist / worship leader. He's not a creative. If you were creative, you would take that song and make it adaptable
Or you're lazy.
or you're lazy.
Like,
But
you
if
either
it's
can't
how long
creatively
was their
do it
worship?
or you're
How long
lazy.
was their worship?
20 minutes.
What was that? 4 or 5 songs? That was probably 5 songs.
'Cause
Because 20 minutes to somebody who's not creative, that's 5, maybe 6 songs.
Well, they probably did a Maverick song somewhere. No,
I stretch it out.
15 minutes.
So that's what I'm saying. You're not creative enough to reprise it, to
One
flow with it, to
15-minute
add
song.
another song to it. I'm just like, so he's gonna keep complaining because either he's
well, yeah,
gonna
they were definitely hard stop songs. You know
Oh,
what
yeah.
I'm saying?
So
Like, it went,
that's a
track
whole
stop,
other
boom,
thing.
hard stop. Track starts, boom, because you're playing on the computer, all the stems. So no
That's
one in the
what I
band is
don't
like
wanna be.
flowing into the next song, right?
That's what we're
So-
trying not to be, which is somebody write something for us. we're coming out of that now. Somebody write something for us so we won't have to be all CCM, all gospel. We want some funky stuff. Can somebody write some funky stuff for our church to do? How crazy is that to have a bunch of production, creative writers, songwriters, Jermaine, all these people who we could pour into and say, what you got?
Yeah.
And then we end up just sitting, twiddling our thumbs, waiting on somebody else to create our
Yeah,
sound?
we have the Holy Spirit just like everybody else, and we have the gift mix.
Why not?
Right. It's like,
So then what else would it
Yeah.
take?
yeah.
If everybody has the Holy Spirit, what else does it take?
Are you
Talent.
I said
skill.
I said gift, but
Yeah,
felt like
gift.
I was wrong. But
Risk.
No. I thought you meant, when you said gift mix, I thought you meant like on the spiritual. I was
Cool,
like, okay.
Daniel. He's like, yeah, it's
Risk.
good at him, but what else do we need? Talent. Same.
No, it's still good. I must not have heard that. I'm sorry. But yeah, like everybody
Yeah,
says that. We
right.
have the Holy Spirit and we have God. You
Well,
hired the wrong
and now
people.
it takes a dedication to your craft, right?
Sorry.
It's like you do your part, the Lord will do His. Your
Yeah.
part as a human is to give yourself to your work and your
Yeah.
craft, to the sweat of your brow. I mean, that's
some
that's
things
the
come to-
day
yeah,
Adam. Like
absolutely.
you get at your craft, like David had with his harp. He
Yeah.
knew his craft. He knew his slingshot. So like his trade, like he knew his stuff. So if I'm a singer, like you get good at singing, like
Cool, but some people will hit the ceiling, and I hate to say this, but we all know this. Some people, where they are is where they are.
Well, some
Where
people
they
have
are-
a natural gift that's bigger. I mean, like
Right.
Tina Turner, and then someone
Right.
that, singing today. Yeah,
Right.
that's a natural gift spread.
Right.
But you can learn, like you can learn how to read sheet music. You can.
True,
So there's
true.
areas where you could still do your best to continue to grow
In what you
more
have,
and
yeah.
more and more and more. There's
Yeah.
there's never a point where you just like hit the stop button.
True.
Now your gift may like reach a ceiling.
That's what I'm
like,
saying, yeah.
As a preacher, I may be a great preacher, but am I TD Jakes great? Am I this great? Well, some of it can be crafted and learned. Some of it's like, well, no, that guy has an independent gift that like the Lord just tapped on and then took off. So I definitely think there's those elements. So that's where we
Right.
keep saying like we do our part. We can see what God does because we think it's special.
Yeah.
People we show it to who are in the industry think it's special.
Yeah.
And
so-
it's risky. It takes courage to get outside the box. There's a great illustration with the life of Elvis. When he was doing all of his Hollywood movies, he felt stifled and he was depressed because he was doing the
Acting.
same old songs and he was stifled and he couldn't really express himself creatively. And then you put him in Vegas and now boom, he's got the choir, he's got the collaborations, he's now able to spread his wings, he's now able to do his own thing. And I think that's where we are. We're talking about like the milquetoast, stale Christian music that's out nowadays. And it's like Elvis in Hollywood. It's like, bro, this is like the 10th movie. It's the same thing. This is getting boring. Like, it's not making money anymore. It's getting boring. It's getting stale. Let's go to Vegas and let's do something different.
That's where you have the scary people. That's where you have the fearful people. I agree. Let's go. But other people are just like, well, we don't know
It took some
how.
convincing of me with Daniel too, a little bit. I had to push you off the cliff a little bit.
What?
Doing all this, doing all the.
Well,
the
no,
stupid-
when it
not
comes to
not in the I mean, you became to have a vision for the sound, but it was more of me pushing you to be like, it's time to put ourselves out there, bro. Like we gotta put ourselves out there.
Well, and I'm cool with doing stuff in house and all this kind of stuff. My whole thing, this is my thing, because I'm like, I'm listening and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's create some new music for the house. But my mind goes all the way to the end always. So I'm just like,
Were your Elvis drunked out on a toilet? Doing concerts in silk and and skin tight
You weigh
pants.
300 pounds.
All of a sudden, you're doing worship in a silk top, showing your whole body.
no, I'm
You
looking
go to
at
the end of this?
because I've seen
God.
albums. I've seen people put albums together that were $10,000, and then I've seen how they have to sustain it, and it's hundreds of thousands. So I'm looking at the end like my mind is going to the band. Got to do this. We're bringing these people on board, and we had a meeting yesterday about blah 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 blah.
Lot
So
of
I'm like,
changes to
are
people.
you sure? This is where you want to go. Because we've been talking in Jermaine, and I'm like, once we go here, there is no going back. So I'm not like scared, but
Yeah,
it's
the
kind
only
of
way
like,
we're going back is if everybody hates it, right? Then you can go, okay,
yeah, I was
default.
just like-
but if everybody loves it,
yeah,
train's
it's like,
left the
are you
station,
sure?
right?
Once
Yeah.
I know people gonna love it once we leave
Yeah,
the station.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you sure? And Pastor Adam was like, yeah, I'll talk to the board, and this is what we have to do. We have to do it. We even talked about studio space and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, okay. So I've gotten to places, even with records and working on records with people where they're like, oh, we want to do it. You know, industry talk. We're going to do this, and let's do this. And I'm like, cool. Yeah, that's nice. And I'm like, 1 out of 10, I'm like at a 2. I'm at a 2. All right, that's nice. We talk about it more. All right, I'm a 3, 3.5, 4. Once I see all of this stuff lined out and us operating, us working, when we went to the studio and did those 3 days, then it was like, he's serious about it. Let's get it done. So in the beginning, talk is talk. And I love y'all and I trust everybody who I'm working with, but I've heard it from pastors and, you know, and I'm like, if I'm going to put my foot in this thing, trust me, I'm not going to hold any of Daniel back. What I mean by that is everything I've given Israel, everything I've given William McDowell, everything I've given Andre Crouch, everything I've given every and anybody I've worked with, I'm going to give it to my church. Everything I give Michael Jackson, I'm going to give it to the church. So it's like, I want to go.
That. I never heard that.
I want to go forth. And if there's
you collab with Michael?
Well, not me. We
He's
did
a
background.
BGVs.
We did
background
vocals on his record, on one of his records.
He's met Michael before, bro.
You've met Michael. What was that like?
I remember. I walked in. Actually, there was a. Did I tell this on here before?
No.
I'm sorry. So we did this. We did this. Actually, Michael Jackson. So if anybody says Michael Jackson has albums that he could release today, please trust and believe.
Thousands.
He has songs that he could release today. So they called for the Andre Crouch singers to sing on Michael Jackson's record. When I got that call, I was like, yo, yes, I'm there. Linda McCrary called. So I was like, cool. We did like 4 or 5 songs, background, just singing and doing creative stuff. His creative director was there. It was great. That album never came out. Scratched the whole record. What? So it's sitting somewhere. It's sitting somewhere for somebody to release it. So him and Prince as well. So anyway, we did.
Oh, yeah.
Tons of music. So when people talk about that, like it's serious, they have records. So anyway, we're doing the session and we finished the song. We're taking a break to come back to complete the song or whatever. So Chloe, which is Tata Vega's daughter. I don't know if you know Tata Vega. Tata Vega is this short Hispanic woman who actually did, if you remember the movie Color Purple, Sister, you've been on my mind. Sounds like this black lady. She's a Hispanic woman, short Hispanic, dope voice. So anyway, Tata Vega, her daughter Chloe was probably 4, maybe 4 years old. She came up to me, because everybody's kids are our nieces and nephews. Uncle Daniel, is Michael Jackson here? I was like, oh, now this is, you guys have to, this is like, I was 20 years old. I'm like, this is a long time ago. I was like, I don't know, Chloe, I don't think he's here. So we went and asked his musical director. I was like, yo, is Michael Jackson here? Chloe wants to get his autograph maybe? He was like, sure, let me check. I'm like, what? Like, we didn't know. Nobody said, oh, by the way, Michael Jackson is here. So he goes to this room that was goes to this room and comes back out. Yeah, he said, give him like 2 minutes. What? So she had this tablet with a marker. I took her tablet, tore a piece off of it. It had a piece for myself because I want an autograph too. So slowly went to the door, walked inside, opened it back up, and said, come inside. We walked in this small room, which is probably the size of this area, just right here. And Michael Jackson was on the couch, and his son, Blanket, was on the floor laying on a jacket. And all Michael Jackson said to us, we walked in, I'm looking at him like, he said, watch my son, be careful. So we walked in, she handed him the tablet, he signed his name, I handed him the piece of paper, he signed his name, handed it back, we said thank you, and walked out. I walked out of that room like, I still have that. I know where the paper is. It's in the storage container. I have the autograph. But yeah, I have to. So yeah, and we did. So we sang on this record, Speechless. Speechless, speechless is how you make me feel when I'm with you and I'm lost for it. So the Speechless record, the title cut, Andre Crouch singer sang on that. And I opened up. I remember the album came out. I opened up, took the J card out, looked for my name, Daniel Johnson. I was like, yes.
Wow.
So yeah, I met Michael Jackson, got his autograph, sang on his album. After that, there was nobody else. Yeah, I mean, there were great talents, but after that, I'm good. Prince would probably have been the next one, but I sang on Michael Jackson's record. I'm good.
Wow.
So I mentioned all that, like all the effort, all the personality, the professionalism that I gave all the other artists I was working with. I'm giving the same thing to my church. So once you say, let's get started, I'm naturally reserved because I know the energy, I know the time, I know what I'm about to give. So I don't know, it's just a part of me. I don't dive right in. I'm just kind of like, all right, let's work this out. Let's see. Now I'm at a place when you push go, when you say let's go, all of me is in, and I don't want to waste time or energy or giftings or any of that. And I'm not saying that's what your intentions are, like to say let's test it and all that kind of stuff. You're like, no, let's go.
Yeah.
So that's why I
get
think
it,
you
though.
had to kind of convince me, because I'm like, I know, I guess at the risk of sounding whatever, how this sound cocky or whatever, I know what I bring. I know what I'm able to
And you're
give.
questioning that seriousness.
And once
Everybody
I give
says
it-
they want to do something.
Yeah.
And we should do
Sure.
this. We should do that. And you're always like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, you know.
Yeah, but I trust
get
you. I
that.
totally trust you. I trust ALFC, and I'm like, I'm a member. This is my home. So, but even
Yeah.
still, like, I'm kind of surprised at our reserve, because the other things are like for other people. Those
Yeah.
are for other people. This is for me. When I say me, this is for my church. Like, I'm involved in this. Everybody else's ministry, it's like the
Yeah,
weight.
I'll do whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, but the
I'm
weight
here.
is on them.
Yeah,
You know,
right,
if something
yeah.
bombs and I'm on the stage with Israel, which sometimes we had not so good concerts, and I'll be looking at them like, man, you got to explain this. All right, give my check. Let me clear. But I mean, it was still a ministry. I'm not gonna treat it like it was.
No, I get-
But
yeah, I
here,
get what
it's
you're
like, no, this rests on me. It rests on you. It rests on Pastor Julio, Pastor Diego, Jermaine. It rests on a whole body
And
of
the
people.
church
so-
coming up and showing up and going, hey, this is what we see this. This is what we
Yeah.
want. Because
Yeah.
that's why I always leave. That's one of the things I always explain to people, because they'll ask stuff like, oh, these movements like Maverick City or Elevation or whatever, like how do you think they became what they came? In the way, because that's my marketing stuff comes in the background. I said, at some point, a group of people decided that it was special. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. Like
Yeah.
at some point, like you could make anything special if you can get enough group of people. Because there's a
Right.
lot of stuff out there that's actually sucks,
Yeah.
but a lot of people love it.
Yeah, 'cause
because
the group is
enough
behind it.
people have
Yeah.
defined it and said, we think this is great. We think this is going to be great.
Yep.
And then even if someone drops something that is bad from something they've done good before, people have convinced themselves that they're ride or die. Like this is going to be great. They
Right.
do that. And so for me, it's like if you can get your people, your congregation to say, we believe in this.
Yeah.
This is special for us, and
Yeah.
we've had an encounter with God doing it. Well, then at that point, anything else on top of that is just a cherry on top. But
Absolutely.
in order for anything to get there, it's not paying for ads. It's not, like it's not, it's not those things. It's not convincing a group of people or paying a group of people to say it. It's not paying a celebrity
Absolutely.
to co-sign on it. Like all you need is a group of people of just not massive in size, but subsequent,
Yeah.
a few hundred.
Yeah.
Just need a few hundred people to go, we think this is special. We're for it. We're behind it. And then that's how something becomes something. Just takes a few people. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's all, to me, that's all we need. That's all
Yep.
we're focusing on is like keeping our
And then
stuff,
that first conference is going to be kind of a big. Do we want to talk about that?
The concert
where our
we're doing?
first concert in
Oh.
LA.
Yeah, we
we
can
wanna
talk
talk
about it
about
now.
that, or-
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it now. I'm sure by the
you
time this
sure?
airs, tickets will be
Yeah.
live. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, we rented out one of the most historic theaters in LA, the Wiltern, to drop this sound. The sound. So it's a big deal. I mean, I think it's special enough, and then I'm saying we think it's special enough, and I think. To me, I don't know music enough, so I think it's special as a consumer who's been in the room, who's been part of the ideation process, but hearing from people who are far more gifted in the industry than me and talented, like Daniel and others who go, I love this. When you have guys that have worked with Bruno Mars, that have worked with other big names, Israel Ho and Ty Tribbett, and they're in the room and they're going, I think this is probably one of the best projects I've worked on in a decade.
Yeah.
Then you go, okay, Adam's opinion means nothing compared to those opinions who are actually doing this day in and day
And
out.
you might think that, and I see why you think that your opinion made. But I wanna, like I said, with my stepping into the belief of saying we're actually doing this. I think that moment, because you called me in your office on a Sunday morning, 2 Sundays ago or whatever, 3 Sundays ago. And you were just like, yo, I have an idea. Now, I knew it was special because worship is about to start in like 15 minutes. And
I
he's
don't
like,
ever bother,
yo,
Daniel.
can you
Yeah.
just meet me in my office real quick? I'm like, what in the world is happening? Yo, I have this idea. And if we do this, and we do this, and blah, blah, blah. He talked about the Wiltern. And I think at that moment, I was still like coming up, but I was like, this dude is serious. Because it's not like, oh, we can do it on a Sunday, which would still be great. Let's do it on a Sunday morning and introduce it to our congregation. That's what I had in mind.
Yeah.
This dude talked about, let's do the Wiltern Theater, and I think we could do this and sell some tickets and blah, blah. I was like, wow, okay. And I hate to say it shouldn't take that, but sometimes that's what it takes for me, my
Yeah.
whole makeup, for me to believe like people are really into this. Because, listen, I keep saying it, but I'm going to say it again. Once you push play, there's no pushing pause or stop. Once you push
You better
play,
commit.
Well, you
It-
can't put your
it
stuff out
goes.
there,
Commit.
and then someone goes, "I'm going to go visit that church," and then all of a sudden, all of a sudden, we're,
Yeah.
how great is our God? Like everybody,
that was my whole thing, and I
You'll
was
be
telling
like,
you,
what? This song was on Spotify.
So when he was like,
You know?
"Yo, we'll turn this joint up," and I'm looking for other theaters too, like maybe the Wiltern is it, and that, I must admit right here, I was thinking the Wiltern might not be available, or Pastor Adam gonna think the fee, or he's gonna get wind of the fee and be like, we can't do the Wiltern, so let me just go ahead, and that's what my faith was low. Let me go ahead and look for some other theaters, look for some other theaters because the Wiltern is gonna be booked up, and he's gonna be like no to it because it's too pricey, blah blah blah. And he was like, nah. I called her, she called me back. They're looking into it. I was like, dang, Daniel. It was just little moments, and that's just how I work.
Yeah.
Little moments of, let me throw this at you, Daniel, like increase your faith, and I've been increasing, and it's like, okay, we're serious about this thing.
Yeah.
I know how I can be. So I'm just saying that. And I think this whole podcast is this one is good for, I mean, all of them, of course, but this one is good for the congregation to really understand like how we're navigating this thing and how we're coming into this and how we're serious about it. This isn't just music like, okay, let's just put something out. Nah, it's not just something. It's not just something. This is real to us. This is what we do. And for some of us, it's our profession, it's our livelihood, and we can't really just do it and just stick a toe in. There is ain't no toes with me. My whole body is diving in this thing. So
Yeah.
and whatever that means for you. You know, I know what I'm good. Jermaine is on board. I got to train up some other vocalists. We got to.
There's work to be done.
There's work to be, and my brain
Yeah.
just goes a million miles. Like when I leave this desk, I'm going back to my desk,
Yeah.
and I'm about to be on some stuff. I'm super excited about it. And I know some people can't be excited about it because they're like, what is it? What's about to
Yeah,
happen?
right.
What
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
is the sound? What
Yeah.
exactly they're about to do? But I can't wait to let y'all hear it. And then even at the Wiltern, it's going to be great. But I can't wait to bring that back here on this platform on a Sunday morning, and our congregation is like, wow.
Yeah. it's
Yeah.
gonna-
Yeah, the Wiltern's just a play. I think you
Yeah.
should. I think you should celebrate God
Yeah.
dreams. I think you should
Absolutely.
celebrate visions. And when we saw this project come full circle, it deserved a space that felt historic because we fell in love with what the music had become.
Yeah.
And us, and you got to think like we have a rough mix. Like part of our head is going, I know how this will sound live. I know what this experience will be live. So a lot of it, I could share with you the song right now, and you'll say, oh, it's incredible. But the way that what you're saying, Adam, I don't see that. Well, that's because I know that this is made to be live. It's
Yeah.
meant to be congregational. So
Absolutely.
I'm filling in that gap. So I know what will be when you get believers in the room and then you get the band in the room and we're doing these things together, celebrating joyfully, having a good time. So I know, they're doing that part and that hard work. And then I'm doing my hard part, which like the only gift I have on this world is I can gather people. That's one thing I can do. I have found over the years.
Yeah, that's
there's
true.
one gift
That's true,
I have.
man.
I can tell people what something will be like before you see it and get you to believe that. And we're going to deliver it.
And it's genuine.
Well, the
But
thing with
that's
Adam
one,
is
you
he'll
know.
tell me somebody he knows or somebody a relationship, and at first it'll sound like an insane asylum patient. Like that's like, hey, I saw Elvis. I know Elvis. He's my brother, and it's like, like that's how I'm like, oh, that's cute, Adam. And then the next week I'll meet the guy. I'm like, what? Oh, you weren't lying.
Yeah, that's the way we felt. Like we rehearsed this music. He wants to bring these people in, fly these people in, and bring them all together so we can create, this sound that's our own. And I'm thinking like normally when you do rehearsals, you do rehearsal hall. We got the space here to rehearse. He was like, yo, let's find a studio and go in. I'm like, that's more funds and stuff. But I gotta honestly say, what our congregation is investing in is going to straight be beneficial, not only to our church, but to the masses. Like, I just want
It's
them to
kingdom.
know, like, it's straight
Yeah.
up kingdom. Like,
Yeah.
and I was so encouraged Friday night and also Sunday when we made the announcement, Vision Sunday, and people were just like, woo, this is really good. Like, that just makes me feel like, okay, our
yeah,
folk
that
are
video
ready
was
for
fire,
something that's
man.
ours.
That video was
Corey,
fire.
wherever Corey is.
Yeah, Corey, you killed that little
Horrible
mini
job
dog,
on
bro.
that, Corey. Horrible. No,
You're
great
the
job.
man,
man.
bro.
No, that was really dope.
It was
Yeah.
enough to salivate, and that's what Corey and I talked about was salivating, getting people excited. And that's the hard work. I mean, mainly that's like, if people are like, Adam, what's your role in this season? Like, this is my role. Like, I'm involved in Corey's side with video. I'm involved in the podcast. I'm involved in getting this music live. And then I preach and teach the Bible on Sundays. Like, that is my gift mix. That is my thing. I know how to release and send people. Like, that's just one thing I know how to do. I know how to gather a room, and I know how to release people. I know how to not have my ego in that space. I know how to not try to drive the attention like towards me in that sense. Like, I do believe that I'm unique and I have a voice to preach and teach. But what I mean is, like, I'm in a room and I'm like, and Phil knows, we talk about this all the time, is like, put the gifted people in the room and let the gifted people talk. Like, even when we were in the studio and there was one person that was like, Adam, do you like this? I'm like, what do I know? Let those artists create. Like, let them create. Get out the way. Like, that ain't my space. And I think a lot of time, and even sometimes a couple of you guys were like, Pastor Adam, is that good? You happy? I'm like, I'm going to be happy when you guys are happy. That's when I'm going to be happy. Like, I don't know a thing about that instrument.
We definitely wanted to keep you in.
And I respected that, and it meant a lot, and I had a great time. But I'm like, I want the people who know this best. So if Corey's doing like, hey, Adam, where do you think we should put the camera? I'm like, Corey, this is your jam. Like, you put the camera where you know it needs to go.
Yeah.
I'm just going to make sure that you guys feel supported. That's what I'm going to do, right?
Definitely.
And then I'm going to make sure we as people get behind it, because we know how much work. I know how much work that has. So I can drive people to say, this is going to be special and it's going to be a great time. And if you don't like it, you just may be tone deaf. No, I'm just playing. The only reason you're not going to like it is you don't like to dance during worship, or you don't like to have a good time during worship.
Or you're so traditional.
You'd be the only person who doesn't like it.
I know somebody who might not like it.
I know a handful of people that
sits on the
wouldn't.
front row,
right?
And doesn't stand up. Everybody has it. I'm sorry.
Daniel be making going for them headshots today.
Sit on the front row with his Bible and won't get up. Anyway, I'll be like, move, man. Clap your hands. Anyway, all right.
They're elderly.
That's a true worship leader.
Right.
Oh gosh. But
yeah,
no, it's gonna be
fun.
Stuff.
Wiltern tickets are probably by the time this airs. ALFC at Faith. I can almost guarantee they're going to be on there. So if you guys want to join us on the Wiltern July night for a worship night,
Let's go.
It's going to be great. We're going to have teaching and preaching, because not everything should just be music. So, but it's going to be large emphasis of all music. Well, not
I'm
concert,
joking.
but Either way, it'll be short. But most of it is the emphasis on, we're going to do the music, and it's songs everyone knows. And we talked about this ahead of time.
Yeah.
For all those that register and get a ticket, the week before, you're going to get sent the song list, not in our version, but you're going to get sent the song list so that you can listen to the songs during the week.
Yeah.
Come prepared to know. They're ones everyone knows, but you come prepared to know the songs, and then you're going to hear our collection of them that are going to blow your mind.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these songs you have to hear, if you hear the original and you hear our version, you go, oh my gosh, that's a complete, flip on its head. It's crazy. It's a good time. It's good to worship. It's emphasis on congregational. And what we want to do is take these tracks, these stems, and get them to other churches in America who are going, hey, can we get some? Because some of the songs are worship songs that we took, slow ones, and we ramped them up. We paced them up to be more of that in between mid tempo.
Yeah.
So for those pastors and leaders who are going, that pastor over there who's like, I just wish there was some more minority stuff that sounded more modern. Well, we got you.
There you go.
And we're going to give you the stems for it, in the summertime at some point. And so whether you have a full band like we're going to have or you don't, you'll be able to play the instruments through the computer and have a piano and a drum set. That's all you need. This was great. I'm hungry at this point. What a great time.
This was awesome. Thanks, Daniel.
This
was awesome.
Thank you guys. I think
great.
so informative. Like, if I was sitting watching this podcast, I'd be like, whoa, I didn't know that about the church. Whoa, I didn't know that about music. Whoa, I didn't know that about creativity. Whoa, I think it's great. I think a lot of people can benefit from this.
Yeah.
Like,
And this
so
episode,
cool.
and the last one we just did was a nice little break from the dating stuff that we've been doing lately. So,
But before we
Even though
leave,
Caleb
say
went
something
viral.
controversial.
Yeah, say something viral in the dating world.
Say
Caleb.
something.
Say something. A red pill,
Let's
blue
see.
pill, black
Let's
pill
see.
thing. Give us a. But then our next.
CCM music sucks.
Yeah.
Every single writer should know.
Well, I don't listen to Air One is Purgatory. It's pretty.
That was like,
Hey Caleb, how do you feel? How do you feel about couples who hold hands during worship?
I've seen them. I've seen them actually. I'm like,
Yeah.
are you getting turned on? Or
Hold it.
is this for you or God? I don't
It
know.
was special. I saw a couple recently during worship. They like had a moment of prayer together during the worship. I thought that was pretty special.
Oh, cool.
I'm like, yeah, whatever. But it was nice. It was nice. It was romantic. I thought kudos on them.
Hot. Let
All
my
right.
hand go.
Our next episode is going to be a Father's Day episode. So I'm not going to make any promises on what fathers will be here on Father's Day. Not in terms of the audience, but the fathers themselves. We're trying to go
Yeah,
for my
he's a
dad.
no.
We're trying to go for my grandpa.
He's a no. So pray.
So if we don't have my grandpa, me and Caleb will pick some type of father figure in our life to represent that. Otherwise, we'll have my dad with us and do Father's Day in an audience. So I'd share the website, but by then it's probably going to be already full. So look forward to next week. Father's Day episode is going to be a blast. Thanks, guys.